Welcome, everybody. Welcome, everyone. Call this regular open council meeting of today, April 21st, to order. I'll remind everybody that there's a live audio video feed that's being broadcasted and recorded via Zoom and is available on the Town of Golden YouTube page. Let you know that we have Councillor Dale in the audience, and we have the remainder of council around the table. Is Councillor Hambrick online? Councillor Dale and Councillor Hambrick are online. We have the senior leadership team around the table also. So with that, I note that for thousands of years, the abundance that the earth's lands and waters provide us to live, work, and play is due to the ecological wisdom, stewardship, and the reciprocal relationship the world's first peoples have lived and live today. Begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is a shared ancestral territory of the Tenamna people. Golden is also home to the Métis Nation, Columbia River Society, and other diverse Indigenous heritage. We're grateful to have the opportunity to live, work, and play in this territory. Ms. Seville, are there any late items or any changes in the agenda?
There are no late items, but there is a request from staff to change the order of business, just to move the CSRD Solid Waste Management Plan update to after item 6C, which is the food bank presentation. And that's just to accommodate the presenter is just stuck in some construction traffic on the way here.
Thank you for that. So we have a resolution on the floor there. Looking for a mover. Councillor Guil, looking for a secondary. Councillor Routley. Any discussion? Hopefully not. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. And if I miss that, catch me. With that, we'll go on to the adoption of the agenda as amended. Looking for a move that. Councillor Emanuel, seconded by Councillor Routley. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. From there, we go to item 4, which is the adoption of the minutes of the last regular open council meeting, which was held April 7th. Looking for a move of those minutes. Councillor Routley, seconded by Councillor Emanuel. Council, any errors or omissions in those minutes? Seeing, hearing none. All those in favor of the minutes as presented? Opposed? Carried unanimously. And council, is there any business arising from those minutes that we will not be dealing with in today's agenda? With that, we'll move on to item 6, which is delegations and presentations, and we're going to move to 6B, which is the official community plan presentation number 3. And we have John here getting into position. Welcome, John. It's a little cooler here than it was yesterday afternoon out in the hot sun.
Yes, thank you. Well, thank you, Mayor. Council, it was a lovely day on Spirit Square yesterday, but it's kind of nice to be in the cool as well. So I'm John Ingram from EcoPlan, part of the consultant team working on the official community plan update. This is our 3rd council presentation. Matthew Thompson was here in town as well. He sends his regrets because he had to go back to attend to some other pressing project work. But we will go through the presentation and provide a little bit of an update. So the agenda is just a project overview and update where we are now, the draft updated OCP, which we have since we last met, an overview of engagement that's underway right now, and some of the next steps. So we're not in summer quite yet. Feels like summer, but we are in phase 3 with a draft OCP for review. And moving towards that, incorporating that review, and then moving towards OCP adoption, and then beginning likely in the fall will be a zoning bylaw update, and they traditionally happen after OCPs are updated, And so we'll be beginning that in the fall and continuing through to summer 2027. I think it might be a little bit faster than that. So in terms of work to date, and these coincide with some of the presentations that we've had with council, we kicked things off with a community profile, which just provide an overview of all. There's been a lot of recent planning work that the town of Golden has undertaken, which has been pulled into and informing the OCP. In addition, there's been a number of recent and relevant plans that have been produced by other groups in Golden that were, referred and referenced and pulled in. So that was all pulled into the community profile. We were here about 2 months ago, very different. It's really nice seeing things come out from underneath the snow. But we did a series of engagement where we heard from over 300 folks through a variety of events and activities, and we put together what we heard report to summarize some of that engagement. And then from that engagement, it has been feeding into the draft OCP, which you'll have in your council packages in front of you that we'll be discussing today. So with the update, we had these kind of 5 big directions, but really underneath that is something important to keep in mind is it's building on the existing OCP from 2008. And although it's, from 2008, there's a lot of valuable information and policies in it. There's also a lot of community input and engagement that went into it. So wanting to make sure that that is honored. And, this OCP really builds on the existing OCP. And so in the update, there's kind of 5 core areas that we'll talk a little bit about today. Improving the navigation and structure of the updated OCP, updating it to align with new provincial guidelines. There have been a lot of changes since 2008, and some pretty big recent ones with the province, new housing legislation, step code, and the like. Simplified some of the designations. We also simplified and illustrated some of the development permit areas, which we will go into. And there's a new development permit area, or DPA, a wildfire interface, and we met with the chief and one of his colleagues yesterday to review that. I think it was well received, but we're still working on the mapping for that component. And you'll notice that's one of the maps that we still have to complete because we're pulling together data from 2 different reports, and then we'll also be ground truthing it with the fire department. So this is the, improving navigation and structure. So there are kind of 3 big policy pieces to this update. They're the community-wide policies, which we'll speak about, land use designations, and the development permit areas. The OCP itself is a schedule, so there are other schedules, map schedules that are included with this document as well. And the mapping has been updated as well, working really closely with the town GIS department and the director of planning and development services on that one. And we have consolidated it and worked it down to from a document that was approximately 200 pages to a shorter, tighter document of 65 pages, and then having a wayfinding, so you're actually able to find policies more easily than in the current document. We have, there is an overarching vision, which is a future-looking statement that outlines Golden's desired future. This was informed by the 2008 vision, and then with input from the first round of outreach. And so we put this out. This is part of the thing. One of the things that we were feeding or seeking feedback and input on. You'll notice it's fairly similar to the 2008 vision, and yes, looking to get some more feedback on that. And one of the things, actually, I'm going to just hop back to the vision for 1 second. One of the things to bear in mind when we go through this is that with under the new provincial legislation, with the housing legislation, housing reports have to be completed every 5 years, and with that, OCPs are required to be, to go through a review and an update process. So that's a much narrower band of time than the current OCP is, dates from 2008, and many other OCPs from across the province were 10, 20 plus years old. So there are opportunities to revisit and update not just the housing elements, but other pieces, including the vision and other policies, and a more structured and regular fashion. There are a series of guiding principles. Again, these find their roots in the 2008 OCP. These were brought forward in engagement that happened in February, seeking feedback and input on them. There was some consolidation and refinement of them, and then they are kind of in organization. We sought feedback on what's most important to people, and there is a spread between them all. They're all important. There's quite a bit of overlap between all of them, but housing and affordability really did rise to the top with revitalization, downtown revitalization, and as well resilience, which perhaps wasn't as much a consideration in 2008, but has now emerging more and more. And then underneath these, and they're related to, again, the existing OCP and the guiding policies, are these community-wide policies. And a land use plan is also, in addition to being a more directive land use planning document, it is also an aspirational document. So some of these policies may not have, be totally connected to designations or development permit areas, but they are kind of establishing, the vision and the direction for the community. So again, housing, local economy, and you'll see they're kind of organized, reflecting what we heard from the community. Transportation and mobility, that's a typo. That should be environment and climate. Natural hazards, community well-being, infrastructure and services, parks, trails, and open space. And everyone's favorite topic, sand and gravel extraction, which finds its home in there because under the Local Government Act, it needs to be included with some policy directions around that. We actually did hear some stuff on sand and gravel, but not an awful lot. This is just a sample page to show how these policies or how these sections are organized, with a brief little intro section that pulls from the community profile, a series of objectives. You can see in the example here, there can, as many as 8 and, as few as 2, and then supporting policies underneath those objectives. And one thing and this did come up in our, when we were looking at the fire DPA, you're also able to go into this community-wide policy section, and there are relevant policies on wildfire, cooling hubs, and hubs for smoke and wildfire events and the like. So there are some cross-cutting policies that run through a bit of a red thread from the vision all the way down to the policies. So we also updated to align with the new provincial guidelines. So of course, and I've already discussed the policies from the housing report that was recently done here, pulling those in, and some other recent provincial guidance. So that's pulled into the community-wide policies and into the designations. So with the designations themselves, we reduced the number, and we addressed a missing designation, which was there are 2 parcels of agricultural land reserve, and it's a requirement that they are addressed in an OCP. So there is that section. And then some of them in the existing OCP, there are, for example, a comprehensive development designation for some larger larger parcels, where there is now kind of a direction has been set for some of those areas OSA and that kind of 7th Avenue would be an example of that. So these are the designations. They are actually, again, quite similar in some ways to the existing OCP. Residential, mixed use, commercial residential, which is essentially the north and south downtown areas. Commercial, industrial. We did make a change where institutional was folded into parks, recreation, and open space, but we pulled out institutional from that because really they're a little bit, institutional is where you have your facility uses, such as the building we're in now. Airport and ALR, Agricultural Land Reserve. And there was meant to have been a map that appeared there showing the designations, but it didn't appear. But we do have a poster of the updated designations, and you'll also have a copy in your package. So we also simplified and illustrated the DPAs and updated the organization because we standardized it so that they are in line with the Local Government Act, which gives kind of clear direction on how DPAs are organized. So you can hear, there's an example here, defining the area, the purpose and justification, exemptions, and then getting into the guidelines themselves. There are 2 types of guidelines. There's form and character, which would be your mixed use commercial residential corridor, working town industrial, which takes in some commercial and some industrial areas. And those are looking at the form and character of areas and considerations around the siting and massing of buildings, landscaping, building design, energy efficiency at relatively high level. This is not getting into zoning bylaw and setbacks and the like. But what we did with this, and we had heard this, clearly in the first round of engagement from some people, and in particular from some people in the development community, kind of helping illustrate what some of these things could look like. So these are just some sample illustrations, and then I can't read them, and maybe other people can, but the numbers below correspond to actual policies or guidelines in the DPAs themselves. But just to give a sense of what these could look like in the future. It spoke briefly to the new wildfire interface DPA when we were speaking with the fire department about it. It is something that obviously has changed considerably since 2008. We are working on projects, for example, on the extreme northwest coast of Vancouver Island, where wildfire has really not been a concern, and now is, and that it pulls on some background work that was done for the wildfire interface area, pulls on BC Fire Smart policies and best practices. That's just an illustration showing the 3 kind of zones that Fire Smart is built around. And as mentioned, there's some additional mapping and analysis that's required because we essentially have to kind of sandwich 2 sets of mapping and then ground truth that mapping, with the fire department and planning and development.
I just wanted the fire smart and the resilience for that kind of thing are very important. But we have another aspect which we may be looking at extreme heat in the future. We may have fire smoke or wildfire smoke over our skies for quite a while. Is there any way? Do we touch on those at all?
Yes. So there are community-wide policies that speak to, and this is another thing that did not exist in 2008 and is becoming more common to have identified heating and cooling areas. we, from our, discussions with the fire department, are going to expand and bring in also long periods of, smoke and air quality, and looking for places, where there could be, community hubs where there's, clean and filtered air for folks. So it does definitely appear in there. So I think, or I hope that council is familiar with the ongoing communications that have been going through. Thanks to the Director of Corporate Services and Communications, really keeping on top of this with interactive websites where we are posting information as it becomes available. So all the documents that we talked about, including the draft OCP, are available online. There's regular emails out to the both the stakeholder list that we've been growing through this and the town's existing list of stakeholders, and a newsletter that goes out to, look at Alicia, 300 people on the town's newsletter, something like that, just over 400. And social media posts as well, for those who are, keeping current with their social meds. We, in the time here, have been doing some engagement. We had a open house at Spirit Square, which is partly, and we can speak about it towards the end because it's a side project around Spirit Square and potential upgrades involving a washroom replacement funded by the Resort Municipality Initiative, and had 50 to 60 folks show up in beautiful but incredibly warm weather. I was not dressed properly for it. We are having one this evening at the Seniors Center. There's been 2 community conversations. So one occurred yesterday with community groups, and there's also some citizens, residents who came and participated. Tomorrow there is one with an age-friendly workshop, and that's when I, at the beginning of this presentation, spoke about pulling in, existing work that has been done from the city. So there's an age-friendly strategy. So we will present at that workshop, but also, speak to some of the age-friendly elements that are pulled into this OCP. There's a survey which is online and print copies available. It was only just recently launched, and this morning we're getting up to 40 responses. It's Locals Day at Golden Sky Bridge, and Director of Planning and Development will be heading out there with some materials and potentially also survey on an iPad. There is Soup Day at the Senior Center. Oh, question.
Just wondering, is there any contemplation of something like setting up outside the Save On or outside the post office, just get random people?
We had contemplated doing pop-ups, and we kind of looked at the Spirit Square one as being an opportunity to, to do that. We have done them in the past, sometimes out front of, Save On and similar places. They can be hit and miss sometimes. People are kind of more on a little bit of a mission. But it is something that we certainly considered, like, to try and, cast the net wide. There's also there's a regular guest speaker at Coffee Day at Senior Center. So there will be another presentation there from the Director of Planning and Development. And there is an online workshop that it's taking, or online open house that's taking place tomorrow.
Thank you.
So in terms of what's coming next, we will be producing a What We Heard report the week of May 11th, pulling those materials into a final draft OCP. There will be, and I forgot to mention too, we also had a session with developers yesterday as well, there's some good and really useful feedback, and I'm pretty sure that we're also going to have a lot more involvement and engagement from them once we move into the zoning bylaw, which might not be as public focused, but certainly there's be a lot of stakeholder kind of interest in that. And beginning, preliminary referrals, there have been some notices and correspondence that went out to area First Nations, Métis, organizations, but, you know, reaching out to various provincial ministries, Agricultural Land Commission, and all these are kind of identified in the local government act. So sending out those referrals. And this is the immediate timeline. There's still quite a bit of, you know, it's a bit of pace, you know, over the next couple of months. So looking to, you know, first and second reading, potentially on the May 19th regular meeting, referrals, which we're doing the preliminary referrals already, public hearing June 16th, potential, you know, and then third reading. If a second public hearing is required, a date has been identified for that as well. And then looking to wrap up the OCP side of this project in July, and then moving into the zoning bylaw review and screening. And, you know, the town right now is going through a bit of a consolidation, so we're waiting for that work to happen, which will happen after the OCP piece is wrapped up, and we have the final zoning bylaw likely it had said summer originally, which is in the original contract, but we anticipate it could be something in the spring that could be completed. And would again, the zoning bylaw has been more recently updated. So, and we know from early conversations that there's some areas that it could be, you know, improved and consolidated further. But we would be following kind of those same guidance of, you know, simplification, consolidation, clarification where required. And that concludes the overview presentation of where we are.
Thank you very much for that, John. So you provide council with the update. There's an opportunity for council to ask some questions of what we've heard so far relative to process, maybe timelines, more so and less so about small details within the OCP, or is that were you looking for input from council at this point in time?
We would take both, and to be frank, and I know that you've not had a chance to really sit with the document that long. So for those of you really dying to dive into yet another policy document, we would you know, welcome any feedback going into, you know, whatever level of detail. And we have received some initial good feedback. I realize I'm saying this from a complete position of bias, but I think it's a solid draft that is much better structured than the 2008 OCP, but also kind of builds and incorporates, you know, the important materials from that. And I feel that the town is in a good place with it, and we've heard some positive feedback so far.
Excellent, thank you. So council, we'll start initially with regards to process timelines and information needed about the information that's been presented here.
There's kind of like three areas, and I wasn't expecting the parameters of where I was going to have to speak to. So
So maybe a high level first, then we'll come into those questions.
I guess my high level would be, we were just at a conference and we heard about OCPs a lot and everything about Indigenous engagement. And I saw that we put the communities, but have you reached out to Métis Nation and Shuswap and Ktunaxa because I saw the areas that we're in, but I didn't see any feedback or anything specifically from that. So I have three things, but that's my first.
And that's very high.
That's my high overarching.
Good job. Thank you.
I can speak highly to that, and then or at a high level to that, and then we'll pass it over to the Director of Planning and Development. But there has been initial correspondence that has gone out with there's intent then for follow-up from the council and from the mayor. But I would look to Director of Planning and Development to speak to that.
Mr. Armstrong?
Yes, so letters were sent to the Kuskanak through the Ktunaxa portal. And then there's also a First Nations Connect portal that's province-wide. And letters were sent to the Shuswap, Adams Lake and Little Shuswap, I believe. So our engagement strategy on the First Nations level is those initial letters have gone through the preferred method, their referral systems. And then the mayor will be touching base with our two closest neighboring First Nations to try and connect directly, human to human, mayor to chief, and then we'll go from there. And work towards building those relationships. The Métis have been on a few emails, and we'll be reaching out further to the local Métis groups as well.
Thank you.
And as follow up on that, I would say I sidestepped that just a little bit in that as mayor, I spoke to senior staff of the Shuswap band because the opportunity presented itself at the AKBLG, but also to highlight that this is coming in, to be looking for it and to bring it to the attention of the chief. So, yeah.
Excellent, thank you.
Okay. Anything else high level, or we're gonna get? Councilor Guil?
I didn't notice if there was a place marker for the accessibility plan that the community is working on with the CSRD and other shareholders.
Thank you for the question. Yes, and there are specific policies that speak directly to that document and to accessibility, both at the community-wide level, and then there are some guidelines in the DPA's form and character.
That's it.
Thank you. And on slide 24 of 25, you have the public hearing as June 16th and a second public hearing if required. And just a broad question, what would be the catalyst or the rationale for a second public hearing, or the need for?
If there is extra comment, received that cannot be resolved at the public hearing, and it's requested by participants, so it's kind of kept in reserve, in case of need, host second.
Thank you for that. So again, just reinforcing that there's lots of opportunity for public input, even if you don't meet or have a chance to attend the June 16th, there is the opportunity to request supplemental. Okay, thank you. Councilor Cooper.
Do I get to go medium, low level?
We're in the weeds.
Medium, low level now. Yeah, no, it's a great document. I appreciate it. But we're talking at the AKBLG with like Radium, with lessons learned, and they talked a lot about going to coffee shops and grocery stores. And when I went back and looked at the OCP from 2008, we did have engagement at the grocery store. And I do feel that is a bit missing here. I would like to hear like 3 to 7 o'clock at the grocery store, people going in, they will engage. People that aren't going to be coming to the public hearings, it's not their jam, that's not who they are, but they have opinions. And I do feel like we are missing a bit of that engagement a bit. So I do think that is an important level that we do need to touch on. And then my low level, can I go low level? It's not, but then my low level is not being picky, but a little bit picky. I noticed there was identified a number of nonprofits within the document, and I have concerns with that. I would prefer just to have it like working with groups, not identifying, because groups always change. And this document's in a guiding document for 5 years. So my concern is when we're putting specific things with specific nonprofits, that's almost like putting us into a little bit of a box. And I would prefer just higher level language, engagement with whomever. It doesn't have to be identified in my mind. And I'm not sure if that is just my personal feeling. I just feel that in 5 years, some of these nonprofits might have had name changes, might not exist. And then we're pigeonholing ourselves a little bit when we're only identifying, like we will work with, like page 14, it's like we will work with this group on this. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure, I don't feel very comfortable with that. I would feel more broad range. We will work with the community on this, I think is better language, we're not pigeonholing. And I don't know how people feel about that.
Thank you for the comments.
And thank you for the questions. I'm going to start with the medium high level first on grocery stores. That's one of the reasons, going to Locals Day, because a lot of people going to that and taking advantage of that to promote and capture feedback where feedback can be captured, but also directing people to the kind of avenues where they, the survey and online, and handing out the project postcards to get that feedback. It is something that could be, visited with the planning department, other opportunities that might arise for that. your lower level or more detailed question, that was a point of discussion at the community conversation yesterday, and it can go either way in a matter of preference. And yes, organizations can change. Sometimes where those are organizations, well, it's always very specific, including and not meant to be limiting. But often where that language has appeared in this policy is referring to some of the organizations who are, kind of primary organizations working in a particular area, or we did receive, information from some community organizations, or here's some policies that we would, like to see included, hopefully included in some of these, in some of the community-wide policies in the OCP. So that's where they appear there as well. We are going to see what other feedback we get from these community groups themselves, because it was that discussion topic, and they were going to provide some additional feedback on that very question.
Any follow-up?
No.
Thank you. Councilor Routley?
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, John. I guess I'll throw a bit of a curveball. It's a bit lower level or higher detail with sand and gravel extraction. So you mentioned in there section 473, subsection 1 of the Local Government Act, speaking to kind of identifying where those sand or gravel deposits, or generally citing where those locations may be. Within the document, we're kind of talking about, there was mention around discouraging bulk resource extraction generally. Would you be able to kind of speak to the nuances there? Because of course, as a municipality, we do not have the jurisdiction to restrict gravel and sand extraction, but what opportunities exist to ensure that operations are kind of aligned with the community vision and ensuring that there's not excess air particulate matter and things like that, or within the bulk resources, like what else is in there? We're talking a cut block or no, there's not a ton of it in the urban forest, but do you mind speaking to that?
Sure. So there are some policies in the aggregate section about greening up, former quarry and aggregates operations. There is in some of the other community-wide policies and community well-being, referencing the fact that there are air quality issues around some of the aggregates used on roads in winter. And when I speak about those community-wide policies, they're aspirational, but also they kind of indicate what a town can still, it's not within your authority or control, but what a local government can advocate for. And then in terms of the policy regarding, bulk resources, I think there was some reference to bulk water being a potential issue there. So it was brought up as, bulk resources, but not naming, water specifically.
Any follow-up, Councilor Routley?
Not on that. I have a couple others, but I'll afford everyone else the opportunity.
Okay. Councilor Guil?
So it's interesting, number 6 on page 14, when we're going through a development variance change to change something, and you think that it's not going to carry on as a policy, and now it's actually going against our housing needs report. I would rather that one wasn't there. I think that's setting a direction for development that actually goes against our housing needs report.
So just seeking some clarification on slide 14.
No, page 14
of the
in the
report.
Short-term rentals will be considered without the home-based business operator model on the property located at this property based on the site and design considerations which lessen the potential impact of adjacent property. So now this is in policy format, which was just supposed to be a one-off, and now it's going to be carrying on. which directly goes against our housing needs report.
So are you able to speak to that, John, or Mr.
I can-
Armstrong? Mr. Armstrong?
If, go for it.
Okay. Yeah, I would just say, that OCP amendment bylaw was adopted just 2 months ago, right in the middle of this process. So we thought it would be fair to carry that policy statement, which is in the current official community plan, into this, bylaw document, this new OCP, but restrict it to that specific property, just so it didn't get lost along the way. As far as compliance with the housing needs report says to regulate short-term rentals, and it says we need a variety of housing. So granted, you know, if we could pick between housing that was purely housing and housing that allowed short-term rentals, which we, I suppose, occurred, you know, housing is definitely desirable, but that was the intent of just keeping this fresh while there's a real estate product currently being marketed and hopefully soon being built that was approved at this table within this calendar year.
Well, I can appreciate you want to move it over, but I think the people of Golden should have that ability to decide that. It was a one-off. I think putting it in here is going to change a lot of things.
So the fear is that by virtue of it being in the OCP, it might be precedent setting.
Yeah.
So are you able to speak to that, Mr. Armstrong?
Yeah, again, it is restricted to that one property. There was a public hearing and a due process for the consideration of the previous amendment. John, is there anything else you'd want to add?
No, I think you covered it. I would add, and it's on a lighter note, I just want to point out that this is something that the existing OCP lacked by being able to say, you know, section 4.2 policy 6, but actually be able to cite that, which is a lack in the current OCP. And so I'll use this opportunity to indicate that one of the things that this OCP is hopefully going to do, and what was a clear direction, you know, given to us at the outset, is to make it easier to administer from the town level, but also for people who are using an official community plan, you know, be they development community and others, to be able to, you know, to easily understand and where the policies they need to pay attention to live, and be able to have that kind of easier conversation, and hopefully you know, save some time in the process.
Thank you for that. So my takeaway is that by virtue of it being in there, it's not precedent setting. It is identifying the specific property, because that is a reality. And it's not saying that this opens the door for anybody else or any other developer to do similar. Councilor Wheel?
I would disagree with that, because the old one also had the other properties that was quoted during development variance applications. So I do believe it's precedent setting, and I think it's up to the people of Golden to what the policies it's setting as well.
Thank you for that, Mr. Denegar.
If I may jump in a little bit, just for clarity, that it's, in this instance, it really is like an administrative thing, but it's also a legal thing, in that the bylaw that it was adopted about a month ago was an amendment to the OCP. So the OCP includes all these amendments that council ever makes to it over those 5-year terms. And they are part of the OCP then, right? When we create a consolidated version of the OCP on an annual basis, just to consolidate it, all these little amendments that are specific to a property are inserted and become part of that OCP, right? So this, if we weren't going through this process right now, the existing current OCP would include this statement in it. We're maybe just not used to seeing it that way because they're attached onto the OCPs. But if consolidated, this is exactly how it would appear. So to not have it would basically be council having to ask to undo that bylaw, to undo that amendment, and undo that allowance that was made by council through bylaw. So it's not a precedent thing. It's that the law was changed by council to allow this one property to have a different designation. So this is carrying that forward into the new.
Isn't this a new OCP?
But this exception that was made, this change that was made for that property, either carries forward or council wants to undo that. And that would be reconsidering the Sevens development. And
So
maybe that was
we have to accept all the previous
Amendment.
amendments going forward now.
when
You
there,
can't have a change in direction as a community.
but there's a development in process that relies upon this amendment to the OCP. So to suddenly drop it would leave them in a precarious position as, or is their development now legally compliant with the OCP? And to drop this out of here would be effectively removing that authorization that council gave through bylaw. So you'd have to repeal that bylaw, and then we'd be in a world of hurt.
Thank you for that, Mr. Jennigar. Any further follow-up, Councilor Will? Councilor Lee? Oh, Mr. Armstrong, my apologies.
Yeah, I'll just offer a clarifying element on this. The OCP was amended, and the zoning bylaw was also amended. So the Sevens has their zoning. They have they can market under that zoning. And this is a mass OCP update. So there's been a variety of changes along the way here, and as much you know, with the ambitious timeline that we have, I think everything is out there for discussion purposes. The reason as staff we specifically cited it the way we did was to carry forward that use that was, you know, hot off the press 2 months ago and approved at the council level. There were other changes, particularly around the short-term rental regulations. The original OCP from 2008 spoke of allowing short-term rentals up in the Canyon Ridge neighborhood. That language was carried forward in 2019, 2020 when the OCP amendment occurred that brought in our current short-term rental regulations. In this draft OCP, we've dropped that language, you know, protecting those residential areas a bit more in the OCP than we had prior from full vacation type rentals of entire homes. But we've kept this more recent amendment in there. So that's really the kind of broader perspective on how the short-term rental policy has been carried into this proposed OCP.
Follow-up, Councilor Will?
So why would you drop the ones on Canyon Ridge and Ozo and not include it in here, but you chose that one to carry forward?
Mr. Armstrong?
So the Oso one, like the commercial short-term rentals within our commercial zones and designations, that is still there's still language to that effect within the OCP. But the Canyon Ridge OCP language from 2008 and again in 2019 was never, it was like council will consider short-term rentals in the Canyon Ridge neighborhood, but it was never implemented. It was considered, I trust, but it was never implemented within the zoning bylaw. In 2012 with the new zoning bylaw, and in 2020 when the short-term rental regulations were brought into to the zoning bylaw of the day. So that's why it was discussed at the council table then, never brought in. So we thought it was time to drop that language versus something that was literally voted on very recently.
Thank you for that. Before I go to Councilor Routley for a second time, I'll go first time at high level. I like the fact that it's organized based on the Local Government Act, that structure, the simplification. I think that's going to be appreciated across the board over the next 5 years until we review it. Going to slide 9 of 25 with regards to the vision, I'm just wondering about the integration of council's kind of hot off the press vision for the community into this statement. Was there process or was there integration? John or Mr. Armstrong?
This one was just informed by beginning of the 2008 vision and then feedback that was received from that round of engagement that we reported on in February.
Okay, thank you for that. Anything supplemental, Mr. Armstrong?
Just that when we started the process, the strategic plan of the day was shared with the consultant, as well as the more recent one that's on our website. And then there's a PDF with the specific strategies within it as well. So those informed the policy, but if there's suggestions, by all means, we're in engagement round 2.
Thank you for that. Okay, Councilor Routley?
Thank you, Mayor. Kind of sticking to the housing piece. I guess my primary concern is that, like, from the provincial, sorry, let's back up. Kind of comparing the projected net housing starts and the housing needs is determined by the provincial housing needs report methodology. Like, we're currently, I guess, planning not to meet those needs. Obviously, we're projecting, and certainly we can hope to meet it. Are there is there consideration of other kind of best practices or other communities initiatives to be more active enablers or active participants within the housing realm in order to increase the rate of housing starts, so that we can pat ourselves on the back by meeting those targets set under the housing needs report methodology?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Routley. It varies across the province, and particularly in higher growth, faster growing communities. There are a number of policies within the document, within the residential section, but also within the designations themselves, where, and looking at in the downtown commercial residential area, and allowing encouraging a range and a diverse range of housing options for low and middle income folk, but rental options, and supporting those through some of the for residential on top of commercial in that area, and like really increasing the capacity there should there be uptake within the development community. As well, there are areas within the residential designation in terms of like from the being driven partly by the changes in the BC housing legislation, but encouraging the accessory dwelling units while allowing them for starters, and then encouraging carriage houses and other uses, infill development in the residential areas as well.
Follow up, Councilor Routley?
Yeah, thank you for that, John. Yeah, so then I'm hearing, like, as we and community partners begin to kind of chip away at the objectives, at the starting to actualize those like policy statements, that the hope is that we'll see that ramp up in start, so that we can start meaningfully meeting or approaching those targets.
Yes, and I think there is an opportunity, and I think one of the advantages, I mean, I'm speaking personally, I think there's some, that the province has streamlined its methodology, but if we really knew how to project very precise housing needs, that would be, I mean, there's art and science mixed in together, as Einstein purportedly said anyway. But I think that is one of the advantages with the housing legislation, is that the housing reports are updated, every 5 years. So there's an opportunity to look back and to see whether these are actually coming to fruition, and an opportunity to conversely update, the OCP, and look where there are opportunities to, either address needs that might have emerged in that period, or to, further support, promote other housing development.
I appreciate that.
And just kind of reinforce that these are strategies at the high level to encourage or enable possibly developers to build different housing products. We as municipality aren't in the business of building housing, just for clarity there. I'll go to Councilor Cooper.
This is my last one. I am just gonna echo what the mayor said about our vision statement and a strategic planning that we did to come up with it. There was also a mission statement, and I just feel these were worked on, and I think that these would be better capitulated. So I find it's confusing if there's a vision statement in the OCP and we have a vision statement on the website that they're not the same. So I would echo that. I would like them to be the same because what we worked on in the strategic plan is not that vision statement. So it just to me is a bit confusing. So it would be good if we had one vision statement that was throughout all of our documents
And, I'll
for
actually,
consistency.
I like the concept, and in comparing the two, I'll counterpoint a little bit in that in the council's vision statement, it talks about infrastructure, comments very much focused on infrastructure, which is our responsibility, which is not so much the responsibility of the OCP approach. So there may be some nuances there, but the integration of the two, I think, is important. So
Yeah.
the language is the same, maybe with less.
It's the same messaging, more or less. That's what I would like to see, because right now there's a one with the OCP and this one, and they're similar, but they're not the same. And there is different routes, but at the same time, we're one community, we're a small community, and having different mission statements for different things, I find is a bit of a variance. I'd like to have it all.
It can be disruptive.
Yes. There. I'm done.
Councilor Cooper, Councilor Manuel?
This will also be my last, next day, but.
Your mic?
I'm just going to go to a higher level yet, and I'm looking ahead 5 years, and it comes up pretty quick. We're fortunate; we already had a housing report in place, so we would need to, when we get closer, we'd be looking at getting our housing report in place, and would be other things that we need to do so that you could go back onto revising an OCP.
Thank you for the question. I think in terms of revising and updating the OCP, it would be with a more regularized period of reviewing and keeping it current, that it wouldn't be the same process or degree of what you've gone through now, where you're updating an OCP that is, getting up in age a little bit. Although to say that about 2008 seems, I can't wrap my head around that. So it would be, updated more frequently and hopefully would be more of kind of a summary activity. And if I may speak to Councillor Cooper's point about the vision,
Please.
there are many cases where a vision that exists in an OCP is a community vision, different from a strategic plan vision. That said, and we did refer to the council strategic plan in our work. In the existing OCP, there are two visions. There is a community vision, which the vision was based on and built on, and then a separate council vision that was included as part of it. So potentially that could be something that could be looked at in this case.
Any follow-up, Councilor Cooper? Thank you for that. Councilor Wheel?
Here. I just want to speak about number 7 underneath it talks. I imagine that was referring to the courthouse property. They allow short-term rentals in existing dwelling units and areas designated mixed-use commercial residential only in mixed-use multi-unit buildings above a commercial ground floor and perhaps not south of Kicking Horse River. So what was the perhaps about? Like, what was that choice of word decided?
Councilor Wheel,
Why was that?
sorry to interrupt. Can you identify the page?
Sorry, it's page 14. Number 7. Is there?
Thank you for that. Sorry. Mr. Armstrong?
Yes, it was again being cognizant of recent policy decisions at this table that occurred in the fall when the courthouse project was went through council and public hearing. There was a hint that perhaps short-term rental developments that we've seen with two mixed-use buildings, two of the three on 7th Street North, perhaps wouldn't be as desirable on the south side of the river at the council table level. So we reflected that in that policy statement, but we didn't make a firm statement in this draft, and it's out for engagement and feedback. So I welcome that feedback at this table and in the community. The other thing speaking again to short-term rentals that that I missed on earlier is this OCP speaks a lot more to mixed use residential type developments being in the downtown, not so much on the corridor, which was something else that was brought in 2019, just to focus that growth in the downtown area for downtown vitality, livability reasons, walkability. So that's another element versus on the Trans-Canada corridor, particularly Gasoline Alley, as some refer to it. So that's one more element I missed speaking to. And then just briefly to Councillor Routley's point earlier about housing, at the very end of the OCP that was up on the screen, there is an implementation table that that needs to be, I think, it's aligned with a lot of the items that we were looking at through the review of the OCP and different work items. But I think that also needs to be aligned with some of the strategic priorities that council set. For example, just general implementation of the affordable housing strategy. There's the reserve fund on there, but there are items that will implement some of the high level policy statements, work items in that strategic plan in the OCP implementation table as well to address some of those housing items. One of the items, for example, too, that the OCP speaks to is and council strategic priorities as well for that alignment is exploring a revitalization tax exemption, that carrot that could perhaps see some of these underutilized or vacant buildings upgraded and perhaps some residential uses added into them too. So that's something on staff's work list to explore.
Thank you for that, Mr. Armstrong. I'll look to Councillor Dale and Councillor Hamburg. Anything to add, gentlemen?
I have nothing to add after listening to everyone's comments.
Thank you. Councillor Hamburg, you're okay?
Yeah, I have nothing to add right this time. Thanks.
Thank you. In the absence of something from online, we have Councillor Routley has hand up. Councillor Routley, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Third and final, I promise on that one.
I've got 3 promises so far.
Yeah. Within 4.4, specifically it's page 20, the environment and climate action, the second objective speaks to reducing total community greenhouse gas emissions by 40% by 2030. Throughout the strategic planning process for council, we were always sure about making sure that our objectives were smart, being specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time bound. And certainly it is relevant, time bound, measurable, and specific. Is it achievable? Do we know where we're at now so that in 5 years' time we can actually meet that? Or is this another situation where it's like, hopefully with the enactment of some of the policies, we'll be able to ramp up that greenhouse gas emission reduction?
Thank you, Councillor. Great question. It was something that came up in the community conversations yesterday. The short and simple answer would be no, but there are a number of those are the provincial targets and a requirement. We know that we are also going through considerable changes with the end of the carbon tax and the climate secretariat, who provided a lot of community energy and emissions inventories and other kind of tracking tools to help support local governments who didn't necessarily have that within their means. That said, there are other the advent of new technologies and tracking tools, other tools that are emerging in doing that. There is also looking at step code, and at least with new development and the energy efficiencies, reducing energy consumption. I think that there's also some considerations too with Golden, looking at that there is biomass or wood is used for heating in some circumstances. But on the other hand, it's easier, with the propane usage to kind of track emissions and reductions. So it's a bit of a gray answer that I'm giving you, in the sense that yes, it's a qualified yes. I think there are opportunities to track and achieve, and they are. Gosh, if you think the timeline for an OCP is ambitious, and reaching these CO2 reduction targets are even more so in many ways, but are necessarily important and remain there to be achieved.
Any follow-up, Councillor Rutley?
I mean, I appreciate it. I recognize, there's with the province and the federal government kind of taking a pause perhaps in strategic alignment there. It's unfortunate, because that the resources made available to local communities to do that great work, seeing as how we're responsible for 60+% of the infrastructure, and with that the inverse, or the disproportionate impact that municipalities and regional, mostly municipalities, but local government in general can have in supporting the efforts to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. It's unfortunate. So certainly, if it is a continued priority for Golden, is certainly supportive of that, and hope it remains. Recognizing that this one will take a bit more work, and potentially regional or broader area opportunities to collaborate on tool work, like Neighbors United and the Community Energy Association historically were doing.
And if I may, at Wildsite, Columbia Bay Trust, and others who are working locally on these issues. And
thank you for that. So I think I'm gonna bring final comments, Mr. Armstrong.
Yeah, just for information, this is actually a legislated aspect that needs to be in the official community plan to set these targets, and achieving them is with the resources out there is a serious item to be discussed further. But that's why these specific targets are in there, and that comes from the 2008 Climate Action Charter and amendments of that era. And now we're seeing amendments around housing in this era, but those legislative requirements still exist, and it is a gap to be worked on.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you very much for the update, John. And thank you, Council, for the level of engagement. Appreciate it. I mean, my comments were meant in no way to tether the comments. There are still lots of opportunity to hear from the community and to hear from the council as far as input. So again, thank you very much, everyone.
thank you.
So with that, we'll move on the agenda to item 6C, which was the food bank. Monica, welcome.
My name is Monica D., the new Executive Director at the Golden Food Bank as of September 2025. So I'm here today to present the benefits and accomplishments from receiving the $40,000 in the Economic Opportunity Funds that we received from the Town of Golden and CSRD from July 2024 to October 2025. The Golden Food Bank also received $30,000 in the EUF funds in October 2025. So I'll give you an update on that as well. I'd also like to mention how much we appreciated those contributions and how supportive it was for our food access programs. I'll talk about the specifics of the impact throughout the rest of this presentation. Also just letting you know how helpful it was for the Golden Food Bank to get a chunk of money that we could rely on to use for wages and groceries throughout the year, because the Golden Food Bank relies heavily on donations, and those donations fluctuate throughout the year. And most of those donations don't roll in until November, December, at the end of the year. Okay, so to talk about the 24-25 EOF funding, we spent $20,000 on wages and $20,000 on to purchase fresh produce and meats from 10 local producers. And I'll get into more detail about the use of those funds when I talk about the community benefits and accomplishments. So I'll start with the Emergency Food Distribution Program. That's our core program. So the EOF funding supported wages and allowed us to purchase fresh local produce and meats from 10 local producers to add to our food hampers, and that list is in the report. I also added the statistics in the report for 2025. I think the big message here is that the number of hampers distributed has increased 266% since 2020, and that's with the Golden Food Bank reducing the number of hampers per month since 2024. So it used to be 2 times per month that people would get hampers, but we had to reduce it to 1 because of the increase in lack of resources. Although I need to add that clients who face severe levels of food insecurity, they get to access the food bank more. Another important message is that over a third of the clients accessing the Golden Food Bank are employed. So whether full-time, part-time, or seasonally, and nationwide, that percentage is 19%. So it's higher in Golden because the cost of living is high here, and about 40% of residents in Golden and Area A make an income below the living wage of $27.80. And that is one of the highest living wages in the province, comparable to Revelstoke and the Lower Mainland. Another reason for rising demand for food bank services is that cost of essentials such as food and accommodation has increased dramatically since 2021, and more so than wage growth. So Food Bank Canada reported that since 2021, accommodation has increased by 26% and food has increased by 25%. Lower income households now spend over 60% of their income on housing compared to 49% in 2021. And back in the day, that magic number was 30%. Food Bank Canada just put out a report last week emphasizing that having a job no longer guarantees food security because of the high cost of living expenses. So in summary, there has been an increased demand for the food bank over the past several years, and with the rising cost of living, that puts an added strain on the Golden Food Bank. So it was very helpful to have the EOF funding to help cover costs. And then in that report, I had a little bit feedback from clients. In February 2026, we asked them about our food access programs. And it was interesting to see that respondents prioritized fresh fruit and vegetables as items they would like the food bank to purchase when possible. So that emphasizes the importance of the EOF funding to purchase local produce. I also wanted to comment on one of the clients made about appreciating that collaborators create an impact on food security. So clients are aware of the support that Golden Food Bank gets to keep going. Okay, so that's the food distribution program. Some of the EOF funding also went towards our affordable meal kit programs. So we were able to purchase fresh local produce and meats from the 10 local producers. So I described what the affordable meal kits are in that report, but I'll just explain some of the benefits. So firstly, they provide nutritious, affordable, and convenient meals to anyone in the community. And that brings in the broader community into the food bank, which helps to reduce stigma with accessing the food bank, which is important because we want people who are facing food insecurity to feel comfortable accessing resources. And according to research, 80% of people experiencing food insecurity do not use food banks. So this program, the Affordable Meal Kit program, helps bridge that gap. This program also helps with the development of food literacy and cooking skills because it helps people learn how to cook with typical ingredients they might find at the food bank. Also, it helps with the local seasonal ingredients that they're not familiar with. So, for example, when squash is in abundance, we'll create meal kits with squash recipes. The meal kit program is also a cost recovery program that brings in revenue for the Golden Food Bank. In terms of statistics, we sold 737 meal kits throughout the year, which is, approximately 15 to 20 kits per week. They're quite popular with seniors, single parents, and single person families. And we developed a partnership with the Better at Home for seniors. And so 324 meal kits were distributed to seniors between January and May of 2025. We got some feedback from clients around this program as well. And they said exactly what we wanted to hear and why we put this program together. Clients like the meal kits because they're easy to prepare, they're nutritious, affordable, reduces waste because they have pre-portioned ingredients. One client said the program helps her with their mental health and ability to feed her family properly. So it seems to be a useful program. In summary, the EOF funding has been very helpful to keep this program affordable, and it really adds a lot to the kits. Having access to fresh local ingredients such as Will's mushrooms or Evie's local produce or local meats from Twisted Heifer or the Golden Acre Farms is such a draw and a great support for the local producers. As you'll see in the 24-25 contribution agreement, in the final report, we also offered a tool lending library, communal garden, food literacy workshops to help people learn how to grow, harvest, and preserve food. About 200 participants in 2025 benefit from these programs. And the benefits to these programs is that they foster increased food security as people learn to grow their own food and they rely less on food banks and expensive groceries. And providing education on preserving food reduces household food waste, which is important if you're trying to save money on groceries. And these programs build community connections, which is important for well-being. I added the financial statements in the final report as well. So I just wanted to, I included the statement of activity for the 24-25 EOF funding from July 2024 to October 2025. So you can see that we spent $40,000 on wages and groceries. And I also included a financial statement for January 1st to December 31st, 2025. And I wanted to explain some of those numbers. So it shows that the Golden Food Bank revenue is about $820,000, but that includes $365,000 of in-kind contributions, such as recovered food and volunteer hours. And this amount is higher than usual for a few reasons. So we had two special projects, the Regional Food Procurement Network project of $140,000. And we housed that funding for 3 food banks to work on this pilot program for Golden, Revelstoke, and Sicamous. And this project will end this fall. The other project was the Food Banks Canada Standards of Excellence project to support the accreditation process that we just finished a few weeks ago. And we also received a lot more donations than usual. We raised $165,000 last year. In the 2025 provisional budget that went into that EOF application, $110,000 was the projected amount because that's what we raised in 2024. If we had only raised that much in 2025, we would have been in a deficit. So why we received more, new businesses donated, Copcan from the bridge, they donated, Urban Systems, and it seemed that the people heard that the need for food banks was increasing. So the community organizations and businesses responded. We received unexpected funds from the Columbia Basin Trust. We received a surprise check on December 31st from the George Hutchinson Family Foundation. And the CBC raised a lot more this year than they have in the past. Also, we raised a lot more from the virtual food drive this year because we had some key people on the board and staff that got the community engaged. So it was really amazing to receive this much in donations and also a relief. So by our fiscal year end, we ended up with an extra almost $12,000 that we'll be able to use towards 2026 in case we don't raise the same amount this year. Okay, so that's 24-25 funding. I'll just give you a quick update on the 25-26 funding. We received the full $30,000 in October 25, but we didn't receive a contribution agreement. I tried to get one, but was unsuccessful, but Karen said it would be okay if we didn't have one. And we're going to use the 25-26, the 24-25 agreement as a guide. So we will aim to spend that money by the fall, September 2026. Just like to talk about the partnerships that we developed that are relevant to this funding. So we established relationships with 10 local producers. If any new producers emerge, we're open to working with them too. We have a partnership with Local Food Matters, as you know, and they secured funding through the United Way to create a regional community food hub. And as part of their initiative, the Local Food Matters provided $7,000 to the Golden Food Bank to support the emergency food distribution program, food recovery, and the meal kit program. And Local Food Matters was keen to support these programs because of the partnership that we have with the town of Golden and CSRD and the focus on procuring food from local producers. So this EOF funding helped us to leverage more funding, which is great. Local Food Matters has applied for an additional $11,000 to continue supporting these food access programs from hopefully this month to March 2027. And we reestablished a partnership with Better Homes so that we could distribute meal kits to the seniors that they support. They secured $7,000, so we have enough to distribute about 20 meal kits per week from March to December 2026 or until those funds run out. Some of the progress and accomplishments so far with this funding, the 25-26 EOF funding. In the previous agreement, it stated that food distribution to residents of the Golden area should be consistent with best practices amongst members of Food Banks Canada. So with additional funding from Food Banks Canada, we completed our accreditation process. And because of this process, we made great improvements and updates to all of our policies in governance, client services, and food operations and safety. So the 25-26 EOF funding continues to support staff wages and provide fresh local foods for our emergency food distribution program. And over the last 6 months, from October 2025 to March 2026, the Golden Food Bank distributed about 1,400 food hampers, which is more than half of the total amount we distributed in 2025. And this could be because during the colder months of the year, numbers tend to be a bit higher, but it also could be because the cost of groceries and gas has been increasing at a higher rate than usual. The 25-26 EOF funding continues to help the Golden Food Bank purchase local foods for affordable meal kits as well. So between October 2025 and March 2026, we sold 424 kits, and that's over half of the total we sold in 2025. This increase is positive. We reestablished another relationship with Better at Home, and so 58 meal kits were distributed to their seniors in March. We continue to provide the tool lending library. With the help of Columbia Basin Trust, we're adding a freeze dryer to this tool lending library to help us preserve any surplus of food to further reduce waste and add to the emergency food hampers. And this will be really helpful, especially during the winter months when there's limited supply of perishables. And we are continuing to provide the community garden. Registration opened up in March. All the plots have been fully allocated to community members already. And students from APES have started visiting the food bank to learn about gardening, and opening day will happen mid-May. So in summary, there has been a growing need for food bank services in the past several years as the cost of living continues to increase. The 2026 food price report predicts that food prices will increase another 4 to 6% in 2026, but maybe more so because of the sudden increase in gas prices. So the EOF funding is very helpful because it covers wages to keep the food bank in operations. It covered about a third of the grocery expenses in 2025, and it supports our local producers. So thanks again to the town of Golden and CSRD for this financial support. I hope that we can continue to receive this kind of funding in the future because it does help people access a basic human need. And the government, the Golden Food Bank does not receive core funding, and it supports the local economy. And I hear that the process for applying for the EOF funding has changed a bit, so it would be helpful to know more information on that. Okay, that's it.
Thank you very much for the presentation, Monica. Council, any questions of the presentation? Councilor Wheel?
Monica, thank you for your presentation. I just have a question with regards to your in-kind contributions. Did you somehow come to a number on the in-kind contribution of what the town provides with regards to the facility and property?
That would be part of it. And it's in our books. But because I'm so new, I don't know exactly how it's calculated, but I saw it in there. I saw it in our
Okay.
our
Yeah, I was
statement.
just curious, and because we were trying to tabulate that with the,
Do you want me to get back to you with?
that'd be
some-
great.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right.
Thank you. Anything else, Council? Councilor Manuel?
Quick question. Years ago, I was helping fill hampers when people were there, and we had lots of fresh veggies and that donated, but they wanted canned stuff. And is that still an issue, or are people more comfortable now with homegrown things that veggies, etc., that have been contributed?
Well, it's interesting that you asked that because we had a survey in February, and clients said that if the Golden Food Bank has the possibility to purchase things, but 75% would love to have produce, fresh
Mhm.
produce. So it's changed.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good. Yeah.
I know. I think the other piece too is that back in your day, you just gave people food hampers like already set up.
This was when they showed up. What do you want? We have this, this, and this, and they rarely chose the fresh vegetables.
But now people get to, the food bank is like a grocery store. So they go in there and they choose what they want. So if they don't want beets, they can pick other things. Yeah.
Thank you for that. Anything else, Council? Monica, you'd mentioned the revenues through that project, the 3-year project, 3 food
Oh,
banks.
the regional
Yeah.
food procurement network project. Yeah.
What portion of the revenue stream was that? I'm just trying to get a sense of magnitude of the volumes of dollars that came through that program.
Over 2 years, it was about $220,000 from an anonymous donor, but then we also received another $17,000 from Sycamoose and Revelstoke to support the coordinator position, and that coordinator position is at a Revelstoke.
Okay, thank you. So kind of $120,000 or $110,000 to $120,000 a year of the revenue stream.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you. And this is on the heels of the next presentation, which is the solid waste management. It's great to hear that people are actually focusing on reducing the amount of food waste going into our landfills, but also the amount of dollars being wasted. So great work, and thank you very much for the report.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
And we'll segue into Mr. Van Nostrom and presentation from the CSRD with regards to the solid waste management plan update.
Thank you, through your worship, for the opportunity to come present. Thank you. Some delays along the way, but we were able to get here. And so Mr. Cochran asked that I present on where we're at with the solid waste management plan update. And so I'm going to walk through that review process with you, some of the strategies that came out of that process. I'm going to touch on the public consultation that we undertook, some of the implementation realities, and then I want to get into the golden landfill, so it makes it relevant to council and what's going on there. And then I'm just going to provide a bit of a financial overview. So lots to cover, but always an interesting topic. So in terms of solid waste management planning, it's recommended that plans are updated every 10 years. It is a requirement for the regional district to have a solid waste management plan. Our last plan was fully reviewed in 2015, and we did an update in 2019 that just focused on an expansion of the Salmon Arm landfill. And so we, along with that approval process in 2019, the province approved that and said that we needed a full review submitted to the province by December 31st, 2028. So we're well ahead of the game here. Our process that we undertook was in 2022, we established a public and technical advisory committee. So that's PTAC. And what that is we looked for members of the public from all of our electoral areas and member municipalities. We also have some business experts. So folks like VP Waste, thanks for Jordan for being here today, who sat on that committee, and also technical folks from the member municipalities. So someone like Chris Cochran sat in on over the years to provide input. We also hired Stantec Engineering to guide us through this process, experts in solid waste management planning processes. So the budget was approved, and we started off in 2023, 2024. PTAC met, as you can see, about 8 times over that period of the last couple of years. They came up with great ideas. We've honed in on some of those strategies that made it through to the draft plan. We also updated the board. So along the way, through the committee of the whole that the CSRD has, updating the politicians. And then in 2025, we really focused on public engagement and getting the feedback from the folks in the public that are going to be seeing some of these programs, and if they like these programs that came out of this review process. More recently, we presented the review to the board, and they approved it, and we are in the process of sending this off to the province. So final strategies. We sort of had 2 tracks, a waste prevention and recycling diversion, and a waste management. And you can see that those 2 tracks are going to require support of staff and new staffing. And we wanted to make that very clear in the consultation process, as well as updating the politicians, that these new programs are great, but we cannot do them with our existing staff complement. And so I really stress that when asking for approval of this plan to send off to the province. And I sort of stress that this would be done over the 10-year course. It's not hiring 2 new people in the next couple of months. It's going to be a process. It's going to be with the budget in mind, and making sure that financially these programs are being able to deliver, but also staffed properly. So just some of the highlights of those groups. Grant funding for waste reduction organizations. So this would be a thrift shop type support strategy. Other regional districts are doing this, where they establish a fund. Different entities approach the CSRD. They would apply for that funding to help offset the costs that they have to incur to manage their programs. And so one of the benefits of getting out to the communities, we did have an open house here in Golden, and I was able to talk to the folks that run the thrift shop here in Golden. I'm really excited about this. Obviously, they have costs that they incur, and so this would be a way to help offset some of those costs to what I feel is an important and often unsupported waste reduction program in our communities, and that's the thrift shops. 3-stream curbside recycling. And so we have 2 streams here in Golden. We'd like to expand eventually to food waste. It's been very successful in Salmon Arm. We've seen a 22% reduction in the amount of materials going into the landfill in Salmon Arm, really based on that material moving out to a composting facility. So we continue to try and focus in on that. Education enforcement regulations, that's really where we need that staffing help. So when we do introduce new programs, when we do introduce updates to the bylaw, it has to be supported by someone at our landfills to be able to be sort of boots on the ground, looking at loads that are coming in and trying to educate and trying to do some enforcement work. Construction demolition, trying to work with member municipalities, maybe to get ahead of the permitting process. We have recently adopted tipping fee adjustments that I'll talk to later, but really the mixed load rate has gone from $270 a ton to $350. And what we're hoping is that this encourages waste haulers to put 2 bins at the site instead of 1. Metal is still free. And so if we're able to separate some of those materials out, like wood waste, like metal, into separate categories, the construction demolition should come down. Those costs should come down, but we continue to struggle with the sort of the realities of having more than one or two bins at the site, and folks are just happy to put it into one bin. We'd like to encourage that separation, and hopefully the tipping fees will help, but also more staff might help in getting on these sites and providing that education. We're always looking at our landfills and optimizing those facilities, so that's not going away. Also, with that is landfill expansion, closure, and maximizing our airspace. I'm going to talk about some of those features at the Golden landfill, but we are expanding the Salmon Arm landfill in 2027. We have a closure, a phase 2 closure project in Revelstoke. And so all these things cost money. They're all a part of managing our 4 landfills within the CSRD. There was some issues raised around climate, wildlife, illegal dumping. As we raise tipping fees, we need to be mindful that at some point it could cause more illegal dumping. It hasn't been so much of an issue so far in the time that I've been here, but we are sort of cognizant that there might be some sort of breaking tipping point for that. So we need to be careful about that. And then lastly, just the financial sustainability. We have an unfunded closure liability of about $50 million that we're working towards funding. And so the board approved a tax element into the solid waste budget in 2025 that got carried forward again in 2026. But we recognize that it's a balancing act between taxation and tipping fees. But also we have unfunded liabilities and we have expansion costs on the horizon. And so trying to make all of that work and being sort of cognizant of the financial picture. Public feedback. I think you heard some comments about your OCP, the challenges around getting the public to provide some feedback. I thought that we were fairly successful through our public survey. We had over 800 respondents through our online portal that had a laundry list of questions and on those strategies and topics and trying to engage the public, trying to get feedback. Our open houses weren't as successful. But we also did pop-up events. So we had staff at landfills trying to engage the public. And in general, I think that we got fairly good feedback, strong support for everything that we're wanting to do, but also some caution around the finances of it and folks being at their sort of limits in terms of how much taxes that they can afford to pay for all these programs. And so that's why I go back and say that this needs to be a measured approach to getting to where we need to go over the next 10 years. Just in terms of the finances and administration, again, I go back to that staffing piece. These are all great ideas. We have a staff right now. The team is about 3, one for recycling, one for the facilities, and one for the finance. And so they are busy just trying to keep the doors open. And so if we're adding more programs, we really need more staffing. And that was emphasized through this process. Some of the cost impacts, the cost recovery, that's also detailed in the programs and in the plan. And then monitoring and measurement. We've introduced this idea of trying to align ourselves with provincial targets. So right now, the provincial target that they just revised, the per capita disposal rate is about 460 kilograms per person. Right now, we're at about 650. So I think that's a good goal to obviously be more in line with the provincial target. And we put that in the plan as something that we can measure annually and try to work towards that goal. Plan flexibility. We have these great ideas. They take time. And so there's no like hard deadlines on when we're going to do some of these things. It will be a part of the work plan. It will be a part of the budgeting process. And we need that flexibility to implement these programs. And lastly, there's a dispute resolution. So if there was an issue with the municipality, there's a process laid out on how we resolve those disputes. There hasn't been any in my time here in the 15 years, but the province requires a dispute resolution to be a part of the plan. So next steps, it's sort of business as usual now. We have the 2026 work plan. The budget was approved. We're marching ahead with different programs. In terms of the solid waste management plan approval, it's, like I said, it's being bundled up by our consultants and will be delivered to the province. I have no idea how long it'll take. The last one took about 18 months to be approved. And I go back to the budgeting process at the CSRD. That's really what guides the implementation of a lot of our programs is through that budgeting. Once the budget is approved, then staff have the sort of the marching orders to go and make it happen. Okay, I'm going to jump now into the Golden landfill. I wanted to get into what's going on in Golden. And so I did mention some new tipping fees. And that's the mixed rate is going from $270 to $350 a ton. The normal refuse rate is $90 to $100 a ton now. We've also implemented a minimum site fee. And so if you come to the site and you're going to drop your yard waste off outside of the free periods, it's going to cost you $5 to use the site. Same with your metal and same with the reuse center. There are ways around this. If you come to the landfill and you drop off your garbage, you're going to pay a tipping fee, and then you can drop off your metal or you can drop off your yard waste for free. It's really a charge rate to try and reduce the number of trips that folks are making to the landfill, make them think about trip planning, but also to try and cover just some of our basic costs at our sites. And so that's really the idea behind the site fee. In terms of food waste, I know it's been on our radar for a while now. We have had meetings with folks in Golden. What we're focused on this year is making sure that the Revelstoke composting facility that we built a few years ago will accommodate the City of Revelstoke's curbside program, which is looking like it's going to be implemented in the spring of 2027. Along with that, we feel that we may have the capacity there to look at introducing something in Golden where we would haul food waste until we can find a local solution to the Revelstoke facility. So it's just an idea that we're sort of exploring, that maybe we can start to shift that food waste out of the waste stream here to a facility that's authorized. We have had challenges here in Golden in finding a facility that will work locally. Kicking compost, that's the compost that you can go to the landfill and buy. That's being delivered as we speak. It'll be ready to go again. The bunkers will be full in the first week of May. We are planning a trunk sale. So this is sort of that recycling type event here in Golden. Our coordinator is looking sort of late June, early July for that sale to happen. And then lastly, I'm going to go through some details of the Golden landfill. So this is where we're at in terms of the tonnage that we manage at the Golden landfill. So the red is the tons managed. So that's everything that comes into the site. And the green is the amount that actually goes into the landfill. And so we divert quite a bit, and we're fairly consistent in what we landfill. Often we get spikes when there's big projects. So if there's a large rail cleanup project or a large construction demolition project, we will see some spikes in those figures. But as you can see, it's relatively consistent in terms of how much waste is going into the Golden landfill. We did submit a design operational enclosure plan update in 2025. And from that, it recommended that we move to close phase one of the landfill in 2026, 2027. I think we'll get sort of one more year out of it. We are going to continue to landfill as is into phase two for the next 8 to 10 years, at which point we will be faced with the decision to expand the existing footprint, but that expansion would be engineered, which means that the site would be fully lined and we would have to deal with the leachate, the dirty water that would be collected on that liner system. When I do tours with kids, I call it the bathtub. And the bathtub needs to drain, and we need to deal with that water that needs to drain out of that system. So right now, we have a landfill that's called naturally attenuating, where the ground underneath the waste attenuates the contaminants. This plan that we submitted to the province only gives us about 8 more years of that type of landfilling. We would be at the crossroads, if as you would, to either engineer or to close and move to a different facility. Just some pictures of the existing. So the red X's, there's 3 of them. They equate to those pictures. It just shows that where we were expanding into, it's phase 2. We're calling that phase 2 of the landfill. We wanted to confirm that there has been some historical landfilling done there. And so it's not like we're excavating sort of brand new virgin material, virgin soil. there are pockets of waste throughout the Golden landfill that have been landfilled, and we're taking advantage of that airspace for the next 8 to 10 years. This just shows the lifespan summary. So the phase, so it has in 2027 closing phase 1 and starting into phase 2. And again, we're going to be there for about 8 to 10 years. This is an overview of the Golden landfill. So the red would be phase 1. The green is the next 8 to 10 years that we have more into the bank to the east. And then the big green phase would be approximately 20 to 30 years of landfilling if we decide to expand into phase 3, that engineered section. And we've got space down below for the ponds that might be needed to treat the leachate. And we might need to sort of reconfigure the entrance facilities and the scales and all that good stuff. So that's sort of a futuristic snapshot of what it might look like in 10 to 15 years. At the same time, in parallel with this, we are looking at options. And so we're hiring a consultant to help us dust off a study that was done a few years ago by Golden Associates, where we would look to site a new transfer station somewhere in town, maybe at the Golden landfill. We would look to site a new landfill. Would that be somewhere in electoral area A, in the town of Golden? As you can well imagine, public consultation, issues with First Nation, distances from waterways, it's going to be extremely difficult to find a new landfill. The other option is hauling to Revelstoke, taking advantage of the airspace that we have in Revelstoke and consolidating the number of landfills that we operate in the CSRD. And lastly, as discussed, is sort of investing in the existing site. So are we going to stay there the long term, engineer it, and spend that money to stay long term? So those will all be a part of that report. That report is scheduled to be completed in 2026. And I will be sharing that with the town of Golden along with our CSRD board. Okay, I'm going to just jump into financials. This is high level, but I wanted to provide sort of an overview. And so we have two budgets that we operate. We operate a recycling budget and a solid waste budget. The recycling budget, we pull in about $3 million. There's a tax element to that. So we tax residents of about $1 million. We also charge for different things that come across the scale. That amounts to about $750,000. And then we've been very successful in our partnerships with stewardship groups under the provincial extended producer regulation. An example is the Recycle BC program. They now fund fully our depot system. And so the revenues have gone from about $350,000 to about $800,000. So extremely successful there. And then we have a number of other programs where we receive revenues to manage the materials on their behalf. And so that's sort of the breakdown of the revenues. And then the expenses, we do put money into reserves annually. And then just the operations of the whole program is about $2.7 million. On the solid waste side of things, our revenues are almost $7 million. We have a $600,000 tax revenue that's locked in the budget with a 3% increase for the next however many years, as long as I can convince the board to carry on that program. And then the rest is tipping fees. The majority, there's a small bit of grants when those grant opportunities come available, we take advantage of them. But I would say that tipping fees generate around $6 million of our program. We do put money into reserves to fund those closures, to fund those landfill expansions. To the tune of about $1.7 million in 2025. And then the rest is all the cost of doing business. Just in terms of our current reserve balances, so our capital reserve is almost $5 million. That's for landfill expansion. Operating budget, if we need, is somewhat lower. And then we're building that closure. And how we do closure is that when a phase of the landfill is ready, we budget for that. We use that closure fund to do that work, to close that phase of the landfill, which lowers our overall landfill liability. So as you close phases, you reduce the amount of closure liability that you have to deal with. Not to say that we're not dealing with the monitoring in the long term. That's also part of that closure fund, but really the money here, the 1.2 million, is focused on the work to cover, seal off those phases and close out that phase of the landfill. In terms of recycling, we have about $800,000 in capital. That would be to buy, for example, something like a screener for our composting operations, and then about $5 million in operating reserves. I think I'm going the wrong way. I think that's it. Sorry, 500,000 in operating reserves. Sorry.
I was wishful.
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you very much for the presentation, Ben. Council, it's an opportunity to ask any questions of Ben on his presentation. Council Manuel?
I believe you have more information. We're looking at different options, 8 or 10 years down the road. And I think I've seen guesstimates for what, for the different options. I think at the open house, and they're all damned expensive, no matter what we choose. Do we still have that kind of guesstimates, or is it just put aside because it's too far in the future?
Through your worship, you're right that all the options are going to be expensive. We don't have those details yet. That's part of the study that we're doing in 2026. It'll put some costs to those. But yeah, it's going to be sort of a tough decision in 6-7 years when we're nearing the end of phase 2 and having to make that move.
Thank you, Ben. Councillor Dale?
Hi, I have a couple questions for you. With regards to like yard waste or wood waste, now outside of designated windows where it's free, for an example, I have a 1-ton truck with a dump box in it, and we're doing some fire smarting, and I'm bringing brush up to dump it off. No problem, go to the bin, pay the $5. Or if I'm doing a series of houses on my block and I decide to load up my dump trailer for the same idea, instead of making 5 trips with my pickup truck, is there a reason why we still get charged more for having a trailer with 2 axles as opposed to just a regular pickup?
Through your worship, so 2 points there. I should mention that Fire Smart, if a member of the public, a homeowner, goes through the Fire Smart program and gets a Fire Smart waiver, that material is free. In terms of the axle, it was a way for the CSRD to try and regulate large loads. And so our transfer stations don't allow a dual axle loads to come in. They need to go to the landfills. Our transfer stations would be overwhelmed. What we also didn't want was land clearing and those types of sort of commercial type operations that typically involve a dual axle trailer to be coming into the site for free. Lastly, I would say it's an easier tool for our sometimes beleaguered attendants to assess. If it's a dual axle trailer, a dump truck that has 2 axles, it's pretty easy to look at that, put it into that category and charge the commercial rate. And so I didn't want to get into our attendants having to argue whether it's commercial or residential. We drew the line at the 2 axle, and that was sort of the logic behind it.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you. Next question. When we were looking at the overhead view of our site, like the map and the future expansion area, were you able to resolve the concerns of the Weisenborns to the east with leaching? I know the liner is going to help with that, but they're still worried about debris blowing over onto their property.
Through your worship, I would say no. I'm also cautious to comment as we're currently being litigated by the Weisenborn for a second time. And so I think that's all I can say on that.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Councillor Cooper.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation. And I did have couple of community members reach out over the last time when you had the open house with concerns over the closing of the landfill and what that would cost, and the concerns over if items were being shipped to Revelstoke. We have a relatively, I think, a great recycling program, and I don't think our costs are high to residents for these programs. But the concern is if these were going to shift, who would be paying the fuel charges and the extra charges involved with removing items from Golden to Revelstoke? Would that be a CSRD charge? Is it a taxation charge, or is it a charge to like the contractor? And if it is going on to the residents, like through the utility charges, what kind of notification would community members receive? Hence, will they receive in 2 months these charges are going up, or in a year from now, plan ahead?
Through your worship, the CSRD solid waste program is funded regionally. So it's the entire region pays for the program. In this instant, it's not the town of Golden opting out and doing something different. It's the CSRD deciding how to manage solid waste. And so in terms of specific tax increases to your members of your municipality, they wouldn't receive that. It would be borne by the entire program, the entire region. And so it would be built into our financial plans, and it would just be a part of the solid waste management plan and those budgets, not specifically borne by residents in Golden. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, council? Supplemental information,
Yeah,
Ben?
through your worship, I just wanted to take this opportunity to introduce Josh Stowski. He is supposed to be eventually replacing me, and I would love to put phone calls and everything through to him eventually, but I don't want to do that too soon. So I'm bringing him out on this traveling road show to show that the Golden Councils are not that bad. They're good folks. And so he can feel confident the next time a presentation is needed, it'll be him delivering that. So welcome, Josh, to the team, and thank you, your worship, for the opportunity to present today.
Welcome, Josh. We'll have some fun in the future. So I just want to reinforce the comment that the CSRD has a $50 million unfunded liability with regards to closures. I mean, it's something that everybody knows is there, needs to address, but what's the carrying capacity on the cost per load or the taxation value? So just know that this is looming over our head, and this is one of many areas of liabilities that we have financial exposure to. One question I had with regard to food waste, when they were looking at food waste, was there contemplation of trucking the materials to south? And I say that because you don't have to go over the pass. Two, they actually have two brand new facilities. I don't know if they're operational yet or not, but was that part of the mix of the conversation?
Through your worship, I believe it was, and I'll take that question back to our recycling coordinator to provide a more fulsome answer.
And then I kind of follow that up on the heels of the 8 to 10 years until the existing phase 2 would be finished. If in fact we did go down the path of composting, and if the stats are the same as they are in Salmon Arm, which a 22% reduction, that might in fact extend the period of phase 2, the life of phase 2 to some degree, and move that liability a little further down the road. So it may be a good investment it may be expensive short term, but long term would be a good investment. Possibly. You'd have to look at the numbers, but just a thought there. A comment, I guess.
Yeah,
through
your worship, great point. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. If there's no other questions, oh, you got off easy.
Yeah.
And so now you're going to tour some sites? All right. You guys take care and travel safely. Okay, council, we're going to move on the agenda. We're moving to item seven, which is correspondence. So I'm looking for a motion that the items of external correspondence be received. Counselor Cooper moving that and Counselor Routley seconding that. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. The first item is a request from the Council of Forest Industries to endorse the Forestry as a Solution initiative. There's some background information and rationale with 3 requests. There's also tied in with that a copy of the final report from the Provincial Forestry Advisory Council, which was released February 2nd. This has crossed our paths before. I've been working with Director Cathcart and the two of us have been working with local industry professionals, and we've drafted a letter that's included in that package for you. And that's a drafted letter to the Minister of Forests, Ravi Parmar, and it's offering comments about the report, being supportive of the transition from volume-based to area-based forest management, and offering to explore whether Golden and surrounding area could serve as a pilot project and some of the rationale for that. So this is actually 2 items there. Look first to see if there's any interest. Actually, Councillor Hambrick had sent me a note that he was interested in moving forward a resolution with regards to the Forestry as a Solution campaign. Councillor Hambrick?
Yes, thank you, Worship. Sorry, I didn't realize that letter was written by you. That was included in there.
My apologies for the lack of clarity. And just for clarity, it wasn't myself. It was myself, Director Cathcart, along with those industry professionals
And yeah,
filed that. Yes.
yeah. So if that's already been submitted, then I don't see any need to go any further. You've already made a submission, and that's fine by me.
And just for clarity, that
Yeah.
the Provincial Forestry Advisory Council. It's not specific to the request from the Council of Forest Industries, Kofi, asking for council to endorse the Forestry as a Solution campaign.
Oh, okay.
So with that information, would you like to move forward a motion or a resolution of council?
Yeah, I would move then to endorse the Forestry as a Solution campaign. And where do I have it written?
The second point on the request was to encourage community members to visit the site, to sign the petition and send a letter to the MLA.
Yeah.
Plus to support staff to share the information. So before we get into including those into the resolution, I'll look to staff to provide some direction with regards to our practices and where we should or should not go. Mr. Denegar?
Yeah, so with the help of Ms. Seville, we looked up council's policies, and the council adopted communications policy section 17A actually explicitly states the town media accounts shall not be used for political forums or information outside of the town's purview. So to promote something like this would probably go against that policy. So I'd suggest that council do as suggested up on the screen. There's endorse the initiative itself in a general term officially, and endorse the letter that's been drafted so that it gets sent on behalf of council. And if individual members of council want to permeate out there the survey, you're certainly welcome to as individual members of council, but it would be a contrary to policy to officially push out that survey to members of the public.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So that information on the screen, Councillor Hambrick, are willing to make that motion?
I would move that resolution as stated on the screen.
Thank you. And I have Councillor Guillo seconding that. Council speaking to the motion. Any comments, suggestions? Seeing, hearing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you very much. And I just got to get on to the next one. And the next item of correspondence, so it's looking for an action, was from the Kicking Country Chamber of Commerce, formally requesting that the town of Golden considers writing a letter to Premier Eby that outlines the need for family inclusive interim action and a long-term rural immigration plan for British Columbia. And it's also provides some other information with regards to the chamber having actively been advocating for change in this realm for over a year. There was a draft letter from the District of Sechelt that was provided, and with the suggestion that that would provide a great framework. I informally have suggested it maybe not be so long. I don't know if a 4-page letter actually gets read by anybody, in all honesty. But that's the request from the Kicking Horse Country Chamber of Commerce. So I'd look to council if there's any desire to move that forward. Councilor Gwill?
I will move that forward, that we will support this.
Well, if I can be so bold as to have staff paraphrase, I was going to suggest using some type of a tool out there, but I'm not going to even go down that path. Shorten up the letter a bit, and we have a secretary, Councilor Routley, and speaking to the motion.
Thank you, Mayor. I would just ask if you know, the carbon copies listed in the letter as well to the Prime Minister and all relevant ministers or our own representatives be included.
Okay, thank you. And I want to step back a little bit, and I'm going to be so bold as to ask council's indulgence to be able to allow the letter to come from council, but also to allow electoral area director Cathcart's signature to be joined in. And I think of the forestry as a solution, the request with regards to PFAC, and also this one. I think a joint letter is valuable if the director is willing to join us in that, I guess. So does that need to be included in the motion, or is that just an understood? It's amazing how this happens. Is that okay with the mover and the seconder? Thank you for that. Any other discussion? Seeing here none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. And we also had one other item. It was an informational item. There it is there. We had a letter / email from Wildsite Golden noting that they continue to support maintaining the Gorma motocross track in its current location, Reflection Lake. And also noting that Wildsite Regional and Golden Branch continue to be opposed to Gorma's 2025 proposal for trail expansion on the West Bench. Having stated all of that, they also said that they, should Gorma go on to the West Bench, that they would be willing to enter into discussions to enter a license of occupation to restore and steward the riparian area, which the motocross is now using at Reflection Lake. So just some information for council there. With that, we'll go on to 7D, which is the items of internal correspondence we received. I'm looking for mover, Councilor Routley, seconder, Councilor Guil. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. And I believe the first one is a memorandum from Ms. Seville with regards to council resolutions.
Thank you, Mayor Ozus. This is your monthly update on council resolution tracking. So process remains the same. If you have any questions, directors around the table may be able to answer them for you.
Thank you. Council, any questions of the report that's before you? I will note under 26-87 with the recent direction set by the Premier of Alberta, already starting to get some requests from the other side of the border, those folks within the mountain time zone. Just to let you know, be aware of that. So this continues to be a topical item. We'll leave it at that. Okay, and the next item is a report, memorandum from Mr. Cochran with regards to the annual drinking water report. I think I'll have a drink of water. Mr. Cochran.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. This is a annual report that comes to council. It's condition of our operating permit with Interior Health. And just very briefly, it's intended to summarize all of the goings on of the water system annually, including water quality, maintenance and repairs, improvements, certification levels of operators, cross-connection control, SCADA system, any emergencies or significant events, and then some planned initiatives for the coming year, or the current year rather. And of course, a summary of water quality. So in 25, I'd just sum it up by saying our water quality continues to be excellent, and consumption is marginally increased over 2024. However, the maximum day demand decreased in 2024, probably owing to the efforts of bylaw, weather, and cooperation by residents on irrigating. I'd welcome any questions.
Thank you for that. Any comments, questions? Council from Mr. Cochran. Councilor Will.
Thank you, Mr. Cochran. The one question I know I went back to last year's report to this year's report. So I noticed that last year we only had 230 monitoring testing, and this year you increased it by 14%. Is there a reason?
Yeah. Through Your Worship, it quite often depends on where long weekends will fall. We typically sample on a Monday. Sometimes we will not sample if a long weekend is occurring. It can also be dependent on staffing resources, or if a particular well station or reservoir is offline at a particular time of the year.
And
Follow up.
Owing to the differences in number.
about the 15% loss of water. Now, is that potable water or the non-potable? So are you using potable water to clean roads?
Mr. Cochran.
Yes, through Your Worship, we do. Sometimes it depends on the where the ongoing cleaning operations are occurring in the community. Like, it isn't going to make any sense for the operators to travel from the North Bench over to the 13th Street well, which is the non-potable bulk source. They'll instead go to either a hydrant, or they'll go to the bulk water station at Public Works. So there's variability there for sure. The 15% is kind of a standard number used in community water systems. We have undertaken community-wide leak detection over the past 2+ years, so we know where we are leaking. We're not. There isn't anything occurring in the community that's significant. There are repairs to be made though, so there is leaking occurring, and there's also that element of bulk water use, non-revenue water.
So then when you're talking about leakage, that includes using it for other uses. So it's really not as high as 15%. Really, the water that's being, like, where there's leakage happening.
It's a guesstimate.
Okay, good, thanks.
Any other questions, Council? Councilor Routley.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you for the report, Director Cochran. With the note of the diesel spill in April, and then the appended hydrocarbon distribution report, just to put everyone's minds at ease. We see a couple, like, obviously there's that leading edge at the front. Everything is copacetic. We're not concerned about any diesel or other volatiles in our water stream. So we're happy there, correct?
Thank you for the question. Through Your Worship, this is a new recommended addition by our drinking water officer to our annual sampling for hydrocarbons. To be sure, I need to have a conversation with our drinking water officer to fully understand what you're looking at. because I don't. As I said, this is brand new, and this is something that we'll be carrying forward in successive annual reports. I don't think there's anything at this point to worry about.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Any follow-up, Councillor Routley?
No, report looks good. Lots to be, look forward to as we see Well 7 eventually coming online.
Thank you for that. And I'll echo council. Thank you very much for the report. I have a query about the maximum day demand decreasing in 2024. Is that a trend we saw from 2023 or is this a one-off? And while you're looking at, I asked on the basis that our infrastructure is geared up to have to be able to meet that maximum day demand. And if in fact we have been able to trend downward, that may in fact make some things easier on the other end as far as capital improvements or replacements down the road. So were you able to respond to whether it's a one-off or kind of a trend over the last number of years?
Yeah, through your worship, I'd refer council to section 11, annual consumption. You can see that the max day demand, as we've trended it over the past decade plus, it does vary from year to year for sure. We've seen increases in max day demand as high as over 21, almost 22%. And then we've also seen annual decreases in the order of, well, last year being the highest, 14.4%. So it's variable. It absolutely depends on the weather and our efforts with respect to bylaw enforcement.
I thank you for that. And I asked the question to promote the concept of conservation on those days when you think you need water the most, because that's what puts the biggest pressure on our systems. If we can reduce those peaks, that'll help the whole system down the road. You have supplemental comments, Mr. Cochran?
Your worship, just to reinforce your point, absolutely. Water systems are designed for delivery of max day demand plus fire flow. So if we can bring that down, keep it down, we can be more efficient with our system designs.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Nothing else, council? Again, appreciate the report and the information. We'll move. Oh, my apologies, Councilor Dale.
Hi, I have a study that I did myself over the weekend. I took samples from the town of Golden, Cranbrook, and Trail, and I filtered it through coffee beans at the local McDonald's of each town. And I can say that Golden has the best tasting coffee out of the three communities. So whatever Chris is doing, keep it up.
That is quite an unusual approach, but very much appreciated.
Thanks.
You should see the room. Let me tell you, got everybody going. Thank you, Councilor Dale. And the lengths that you're willing to go to do your studies is much appreciated. So there's no outgoing correspondence. We're now on to reports from council. Any council reports, the activities that you've been involved in the last couple of weeks, wearing your council member hat? Councilor Manuel, start us off.
Okay, I went to UBCM webinar, attended, and it was about understanding modern treaties in BC. It started off, actually, some people may remember the name of George Abbott. He's been a minister in different capacities along the way. And he basically started off by talking about the history. And it seems like people may have noticed that we have no treaties. We've got, not the rest of the country has treaties. And evidently the early provincial governments, even before, they basically didn't want treaties because that would bind them. And what was then Canada was actually dealing by treaty and doing much more generous. So they left us a legacy of no treaties, which would have made things simpler, I think. Also, I found out during this webinar that when, let's see, it was pointed out that private properties could be involved in legal decisions, but not in treaty negotiations. Ouch. Okay. Climate caucus. There was a video on there. I don't know, some of you may know Merlin Blackwell, the mayor of Clearwater. I've known over this term that he's had quite a bit of issues with disruptive people there, and they seem to follow a disruptive disinformation. And he was quite troubled by this. And also, he's talked to other mayors in other communities, and it's not limited to Clearwater. So it's quite concerning. Basically because he sees it coming to election, and that kind of behavior is not the foundation of good government. Like the rest of you, I was at AKBOG. I shouldn't say the rest of you, but council. And I was quite impressed with the gentleman who was representing the mass timber operation. He was putting together, they're doing small accessory homes, whatever you call and I thought, and they ship them and everything's beautifully set up. And then you put them on whatever kind of foundation you want. And they seem like something that might be possible for laneway houses in the future because, and at a lower cost than we're now looking. Oh, let's see. Oh yeah, finally, I don't want to forget. May 2nd and 3rd, your library book sale. All proceeds going to local things like the children's reading, summer reading project. That's it.
Thank you. Any questions for Councillor Manuel? Seeing none, any other council reports? Councillor Routley?
Thank you, Mayor. Going just a little bit before the annual convention and AGM for the Association of Kootenai Boundary Local Governments. Quickly before then, obviously we had a Kicking Horse Country Chamber of Commerce meeting with some of their work obviously being featured in the agenda today. On the 11th, had the distinct privilege to watch a broad demographic of the community play and some competitive pickleball and hand out some medals. That was great. Great use of the facility at the Recplex. And then, getting into AKBLG for the viewing public, Association of Kootenai Boundary Local Governments, which is a segment of, or one of the federated members of the Union of BC Municipalities, representing the Kootenai Boundary region, not inclusive of Revelstoke or Area A. Golden is in a weird little exclave of AKBLG and the Southern Interior Local Government Association. I'm really proud of the successes that Team Golden has seen at that convention with respect to resolution advocacy. Great illustration by Councillor Guyot for mosquito control and the resolution that council had passed on to AKBLG there around the use of remote piloted aircraft, and then the more regional research project around the Tourist Accommodation Assessment Relief Act and its impacts in the entire region, but hoping to extend that into some opportunities for discussion provincially, and its intersections with the prescribed classes of property regulation and the Assessment Act, and all those joys of local government finance. A ton of learning, a ton of opportunity to chat with our colleagues throughout the region, and certainly great value that we're bringing back to the municipality and the community. So with that, just say it was great. Looking forward to seeing UBCM support mosquito control in the province generally, and the work regionally continuing.
Thank you. Any questions for Councillor Routley? Seeing none, any other reports? Councillor Cooper?
I attended a Kicking Horse Culture general meeting. And they were doing a review on Emberfest, and there is a survey on the Kikin Horse Culture webpage to talk about, it was a bigger year this year from funding and from what they're already working on next year, basically. And what does the community want? They had bands this year, they had creative workspaces, they had the concert in the evening time, the outdoor show, and just kind of having general feedback as what people liked, where we're going, where they're going, and what's going to happen next year, because they are already start planning for next year. So I encourage everyone to go to the webpage to find out some of the information. And there is, as I said, there's a survey. So if you're interested in Emberfest and enjoyed it and have your thoughts, go and sign up and let everyone know how you feel for next year. That's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilor Cooper? See none, any other council reports? Okay, I guess I'll dive into it. Along with Electionary Director Cathcart, I attended the Goldenrod and Gun Club AGM. It was quite interesting. It wasn't by virtue of an invite. We saw it on the agenda, mentioned it to Karen, and we just went. It was quite eye-opening as far as the number of projects, the number of habitat enhancement projects that group is doing. Some amazing work. I also met with Director Cathcart and Golden Community Economic Development, Jill, to talk about the future of the Golden Trail Alliance, and we're doing some work on that. Attended a session with the Comptroller of Water Rights, along with other Columbia River Treaty Local Government Committee members, to discuss communications, or maybe the lack thereof, with entities such Crown Corp, such as BC Hydro. There's had some activities with the Council Select Committee as part of, and that's included as part of this agenda. Attended the Columbia Shuswap Regional District Board meeting, and the board received a presentation from Kelvin, who was here earlier, with regards to the Sioux Big Oil. The board also established a director remuneration committee, which I believe triggered for me is, I don't know if we have policies related to that, but the CSRD, it says within 6 months of the election, so there may be something that will be flagged for us in the very near future. Draw attention to the fact that electoral area director, through grants and aids, supported the Rod and Gun Club to the tune of $1,995 for outreach and engagement with regards to living with fire, and that, again, that's all the fire awareness. Also on the agenda was the board supported staff entering into an agreement with the contractor to provide mattress and car seat recycling services at the CSRD sites. And this is for a 5-year program. It's 3 years plus 2, for a total cost of $1.3 million. Plus taxes. Recycling is not cheap, and I mean a portion of that is recoverable by virtue of the tipping fee associated with a mattress. But let me tell you, it does not in any way cover that full cost of that contract. Just an awareness note. Wish Ben was still here, but he's up there looking at the number of mattresses we have. And with the number of hotels, motels, we actually generate a large number of mattresses. As an aside, I just this, I think it was this morning, received an invite to attend McHappy Days on May 6th at a local Ronald McDonald's, and I share that because those dollars that are supported go to, the proceeds go to support Ronald McDonald House charities, and I know a number of people within our community have had the opportunity, or the unfortunate opportunity, to utilize those facilities. It's great. Just contact them May 6th. You can support them in any way, or drop in for, and then volunteer for an hour, have some fun. It is really a tough job, serving the public food in a very fast fashion. That's it for me. Any questions on my report? Good. Oh, Councilor Manuel, Just a quick comment.
Just a quick comment. When I used to live in the city and friends still do there, mattresses are a bloody pain in the butt. They get abandoned in back alleys and all this, and they cost the city a huge amount of money. So I like people who are getting preemptive. That's good.
Excellent. And recognize that there's costs associated with everything we do. We'll move on to reports from committees. We have a report from the staff report from Mr. Petrovic with regards to the Golden Municipal Aquatic Services Facility Option Study Contract Award.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. Back at your last council meeting on April 7th, council passed a motion to form a council select committee to review the shortlisted proposals for our forthcoming aquatic study. The expression of interest was posted back in January. We had 11 submissions to the study, and at least 8 of those submissions were all of a very high caliber of quality that hit all the strokes that we were looking for in terms of compliance with the items we listed in the expression of interest. The committee met on Tuesday, April 14th, and we were able to kind of plan a pretty action-packed day with 3 separate presentations from our 3 shortlisted proponents. The members on your committee included the mayor, the area director, the director of community services from the CSRD, Mr. Sutherland, our director of director of public works, Mr. Cochran, our recreation coordinator, Miss Chelsea Kiefer, and myself were involved in that process. So we took in three good presentations, had some good dialogue, and actually rated and scored those presentations. And at the end of the day, the committee did land on a unanimous decision to bring forward a recommendation to award a contract to Carcierian Strokes McDonald Architects to the tune of our $150,000 budget associated with the project. Just a couple quick notes of interest about the Carskadden team. They're a smaller based firm that's based out of Vancouver. They brought forward some great projects in terms of parallel projects that could be compared to the work we want to tackle here, including a rehabilitation project at the Centennial Pool in Bella Coola, which was recently done in 2025. Various projects that they have on the go with the W.C. Blair Recreation Center in Walnut Grove, more of a re-envisioning and planning cycle there. A great example from a private sector representative where a company called Pedalheads that is actually putting pools into shopping malls and offering lessons into there. So the components, the architectural work involved with putting a pool into what used to be a Kmart is pretty interesting. Outdoor renovations at the Centennial Pool in Port Coquitlam. That's one of their outdoor facilities. An outdoor pool in Prairie Winds as a new build. Details on provided a lot of great details on sports covers that are starting to happen in the Metro Vancouver area. These are larger metal coverings that are going to house lacrosse, pickleball, farmers markets, and such, and brought forward some great examples on how that type of structure could potentially be considered for options that we want to explore within our own study. From a new build perspective, some great examples of a new facility built in 2019 in Vanderhoof, and more recently a downside version of that facility, a similar facility, indoor pool with a lap pool and leisure pool in Flin Flon, Manitoba. With that, the committee had some great feedback just in terms of that relevance, in terms of the size of communities that this firm has worked with, but also their own firm in terms of the size that they are. They're a smaller based firm of about 20 plus staff. And over the years, I've seen some phenomenal presentations from this group at various networking conferences that I've been at as well. So with that, the recommendation is before you. I'll let council ask any questions, and then after you pass the motion, I'll give you a little update on what we're working on now.
Thank you for that. Any questions of clarification prior to getting the motion on the floor? If there's not, we'll look, somebody move the resolution, the recommended resolution. Councilor Routley?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Happy to move the recommendation that we proceed with. See the name Carskadden Strokes McDonald Architects Incorporated with the 150 project budget.
Thank you. Looking for a seconder. Councilor Manuel seconding that. Any discussion on the motion? Councilor Dale, were you seconding that, or would you have some questions?
No, I was looking at the second.
My apologies. No discussion on the motion. With that, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. So Mr. Petrovic, some follow-up?
Thank you, Your Worship. Now that the motion is passed, staff will be having their kickoff meeting with Cascadian next Tuesday when we're in Vancouver for the annual BC Parks and Recreation Conference. So meeting is already scheduled up and details are rolling along and files on the work that we've done in the past have been downloaded. So we're on our way with this project.
Thank you for that. And I'll follow up with council as per the terms of the reference. We created the select committee. There was an expiry date on that select committee, which was April 30th or a resolution of council. So if it's okay with council, we'll just let it burn itself out. And come April 30th, the committee will be done. The work of the committee is done. Okay, we'll move on. We're moving on to reports from staff. On to the Chief Administrative Officer, verbal update from the CAO. Mr. Denigar.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Apologize in advance. I got a lot. So along with Tourism Golden and the Chamber of Commerce and Golden CED, I participated in an exploratory meeting with Tourism HR Canada about the potential for Golden to be one of 4 initial communities in Canada, being part of a study that they're launching next year. It would explore the interplay between economic, social, and infrastructure factors shaping tourism in rural communities. There was unanimous support amongst all the participants to move this forward if we can, and if we get chosen, which seems pretty likely, more information will be brought out to council and to the public. And if you're interested in background information, I can email out the backgrounder on that. But it's pretty exciting if we get chosen. Yeah. Also, like to say, I joined Chris Cochran for an all-hands budget and work plan update over at Public Works. Great questions and great engagement from staff and a real eagerness to move initiatives forward from them. Met virtually with all RMI community CAOs to review key themes identified from the group's collaboration with DMOs, it's like Tourism Golden, at the recent BC Tourism Industry Conference that was held in Kelowna. I'm happy to share this with council by email as well. Otherwise, my update will last an hour. But there's a lot of good collaboration and a lot of common areas that were discovered amongst the groups, and with a lot of support from the ministry as well. Also attended AKBLG, if you remember I was there. Excellent presenters. Also just very recently attended some OCP engagements. I'd say there's very good positive interest from the public and stakeholder groups. So it's good to see the interest in that. Over to corporate services and communications. That department has posted the corporate services and communications coordinator position to fill an upcoming vacancy as our very own Brenda Smith prepares for retirement after 18 years of service with the town. So congrats to her. And if you can get that word out, we're looking for people. Big shoes to fill. Staff are also busy working on a temporary license of occupation applications and approvals for lots of events planned this spring and summer, from running and bike races to community events. So thank you to everyone who's going through that process. Over to finance and admin. Budget process is well underway with the budget book published and available for public review at golden.ca/budget. Engagement is ongoing with the second and third readings of the bylaw coming forward after the close of the survey. Audit is near completion and the auditors are planning to attend the May 5th council meeting. So put that in your calendar. It'll be exciting. Staff will also be busy working, are busy working on the, here's a bunch of acronyms, the LGDE and SOFI reports. LGD is local government data entry, SOFI is statement of financial information. So those are annual reports that have to be done. There's also an annual capital expenditure and repair report. Is there an acronym for that yet? No, we should come up with one. And of course, just other regular quarterly reporting. Finance is also beginning preparations of the annual tax notices for 2026. The sole property sold at tax sale in 2025 has now been redeemed. And the CFO attended the Municipal Insurance Association of BC conference. And I hear the sessions there were very, very relevant and covered all departments. So lots of good learnings. Planning and development. Business license renewals are flowing in. A reminder to everybody to renew, and thanks to those who have. OCP second round engagement is ongoing until May 4th. Open house at the senior center is tonight at 4 o'clock. So we got 6 minutes to finish this meeting. There's also an online open house tomorrow from 7 till 8 p.m. if you can't make the 4 o'clock one today. There will also be a few other engagement sessions at other events around town. For more information on the OCP, check out golden.ca/OCP. It has information about that online meeting as well. We invite everybody to attend that. Spirit Square washroom locations, we got a lot of feedback on that. Even just yesterday afternoon, I think it was, we're out there in the square. I think there seems to be a tending towards one preference. I'll let you look at the boards. And DCCs, just so you know, that'll likely be coming back to council in mid-May based on the feedback from the last session. So thank you for that. Protective Services, Fire Department, through grant funding, the heat and air conditioning pumps have been installed in the southeast admin building, shared with the EOC there. The trees have been fire smarted around the building because nobody wants their EOC burning down. The new Deputy Chief and Manager of Protective Services job posting has closed, and council can expect an announcement once the contract is finalized. And with wildfire season here, rest assured that Fire Services has already recertified all its members to a minimum of S100 wildland firefighting level. They have built a wildfire tactical plan and are actively in training with BC Wildfire Services and mutual aid partners in coordination with the Golden Area Emergency Program. So we will be ready as we can be. Over to Public Works, Community Spring cleanup continues. I hear you've gotten rid of all the dust. Okay. Never ending battle. Well 7 pre-construction meeting is scheduled for this Friday. So making progress on that. And a license of occupation, some good news here, license of occupation has been executed through the BC Transportation Financing Authority land division for the parking lot over by the card lock, and planning for the work on that will be commencing very soon. So yeah.
Great news.
More parking, yay. And finally, not last but not least, recreation services. Swimming lesson registration, just an example of popularity of some of the programs. The swimming lesson registration for the spring set, that's May to June, opened up on April 8th. And within 8 minutes of opening registration, 85% of available spots were filled. Staff will be adjusting classes that are not filled and attempting to accommodate the 99 people who are currently on wait lists. Apparently swimming is popular. On Thursday, April 16th, the Rec Department and Public Works and Set in Stone Landscaping Company hosted a site tour and detailed design conversation with the Ops Department and key stakeholders regarding the Racket Courts landscaping project. And finally, the request for proposal for the Recplex Park shelter and washroom for that park area there, that comes to a close tomorrow. So everything moving along nicely. Any questions?
Thank you. Council, any questions of Mr. Dindergaard? I guess I'll make one quick comment. It's great to hear about the wildfire tactical plan being set into place. It's nothing worse than not having a plan when your situation arises. With regards to the Tourism HR Canada, please circulate that information to council. That sounds quite interesting. Translate, and my takeaway is that it's relating tourism impacts on infrastructure. And that's something that resort municipalities have been talking about for the last year or so, for sure. And congratulations to Brenda Smith for retiring. Good on you. 18 years, it's a long haul. Any other comments from Mr. Dindergaard? Questions? No. With that, we will move on to Public Works Department. We have a staff report from Mr. Cochran with regards to the 2026 pavement patching program.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. The recommendation for council is to award the 2026 pavement patching program to Terrace Construction under the 2026 to 2030 draft capital financial plan for a construction value of up to $325,000. That's the amount allocated for the annual patching program this year. Staff proposed to initially award up to 90%, holding back 10% for contingency allowance, and then letting that go later if it's not needed for additional patching. It was publicly advertised, the opportunity, that is, and we received proposals from two paving companies, with Terrace being the low bidder overall for sure. For timing of the program completion, the proponents required under contract to complete 75% of the work by June 30th and the remainder before September 30th. Typically, however, that will be wrapped up before first snowfall mid-October. I welcome any questions.
Thank you for that. Councilor Guil, questions?
Does this work with the painting contractor?
Yeah, through your worship, the timing's never perfect. We do line painting is anticipated to be completed by the end of June. So there are typically patches that'll occur after line paintings happened, but line painters, if they come back, we get them to patch those up.
Thank you for that. What's the wishes of council? Councilor Otley?
Thank you, Brent. Just a question. Council will recall that we've kind of consolidated or kind of went ahead with a biannual schedule for sidewalks. We were some of the values of AKBLG, the conversations with colleagues, say in Fernie, where they've similarly, they've tried to kind of build out a more attractive pot of paving money by consolidating to like a bi or tri-annual that's the right phrasing project. Is there possibility that might be on the radar for us? Just only two bidders, not that there are a ton of operators, but are we ever kind of concerned about kind of those efficiencies? $325,000 doesn't get us a whole lot of asphalt. So just a general question on that.
Mr. Cochran?
Yeah, through your worship, the paving companies always need a place to batch asphalt, and part of the problem that I've heard is that for a company other than what you're seeing here on the report to come forward and bid, they've got to have a gravel pit available to batch, and that's not always possible. Unless, of course, there's work going on the highways where a paving contractor may have a site for batching asphalt that the ministry will permit, and they've also got the capacity. I know that the one bidder that bids historically on an annual basis, they purchase their product from the recommended proponent. That's how tight it is. With the sidewalks, it makes sense for us absolutely to save our money and advertise an opportunity every other year. For paving, I'd be leery of doing that just because we get so much degradation annually through the winter freeze-thaw process that if we didn't have something every year, I think we'd be losing more ground. I appreciate it.
Great question, great response. Practical. Councilor Manuel?
Just wondering, highway as it goes through our town, that's provincial, so they be responsible for their own paving and line painting.
Ms. Cochran?
Through your worship, that's correct.
That makes me happy.
Good council, what's the wish of council? We have a resolution, a recommended resolution. Councilor Routley moving that. Councilor Guil seconded it. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously.
Thank you.
We'll now move on to, I didn't do that. Staff report from Mr. Cochran with regards to Pine Drive sanitary main replacement, sir.
Thank you, Your Worship. The recommendation before council is to award a construction contract to Rocky Mountain Earthworks Corp. under the 2026 to 2030 draft capital financial plan for $759,100 plus GST. Council knows that we've been working on this one for a couple of years now and finally getting it towards the finish line. Council this spring endorsed a budget amendment allowing for the project to be retendered. It was tendered in fall of 2025 unsuccessfully, with all bids being significantly over the budget. So we've retendered. 9 proponents came to the table this time, and pricing was better, absolutely. The report outlines the project main components, being installation of 425 meters of 300 millimeter diameter PVC pipe, water and sewer service connections to 2 adjacent commercial lots, 3 manhole assemblies, and restoration of the Ministry of Transportation and Transit gravel pit access road, being that's the route to the pathway for the pipeline installation. For the project schedule, the majority of the underground utility installation work will occur within approximately a 3-month period. However, the recommended proponents looking for a 4-month construction window, with work proposed to be completed by the end of August. Contractually, the tender specified that substantial performance would be by October 15th at the latest. This project provides an opportunity for future cost recovery, and staff intend to incorporate a proposed connection fee into the upcoming 2027 sanitary sewer bylaw update to council coming this fall for cost recovery from developers connecting. And the report just explains some other considerations that staff are contemplating at this time, and that's canvassing adjacent residents to see if they're interested in potentially connecting water and sewer services for future detached secondary residential dwellings along those properties that are adjacent to the pipeline route. Of course, it would be most cost effective for them to want to do this at this time during construction versus later. So we'll more than likely approach the adjacent property owners to see if anybody's interested. I'm aware of one property that is already. And I'd welcome any questions at that point.
Thank you for that, Mr. Cochran. And before we get a resolution on the floor, any question for clarification? Councilor Guil?
Thank you for the report. I was looking at the variance between the first, like the bid that you're putting forward is 17%. And I noticed that, I guess it was Urban Systems that kind of went through the proposals, and they didn't do a reference check. Have we worked with this company before?
Mr. Cochran?
Your Worship, so I did ask Urban Systems if they had experience with Rocky Mountain Earthworks, and they do. So in their proposal they submitted, the proponents had to include similar project examples, and this outfit, this recommended proponent included at least 2 examples of similar type work that they've completed in Invermere, which would be utilities at similar depth as Golden. It's an offshoot, I understand, of Max Helmer Construction or family, so there's familiarity there.
Just thought it was quite a big difference in bids on that one. Thanks.
Okay, any other questions of clarification? If not, we have a recommended resolution. Looking for a mover. Councilor Routley.
Thank you.
Moving the resolution that's up there, Counselor Dale seconding that. Speaking to the motion, Counselor Routley.
Just thanks to staff on this and the consideration for a bit of a recoverable value add to encourage some gentle density in the neighborhood. That's really exciting.
Thank you for that. And that was gonna be my comment too. Talking to the adjacent property owners with that opportunity, get it done now. Might impact increase the value of your property. Okay, no, Councilor Manuel, question, comment?
Found myself getting a bit muddled. Thank you. I found myself getting a bit muddled through all this, but one thing I did, we have two types of pipe, and the smaller one is good for maybe 25 years, whereas the larger one could be as good for as long as 80 years. Does the does the resolution include the larger pipe, the longer lasting?
Mr. Cochran?
Yeah, through your worship, as a reminder to council, at the last report earlier in the year when staff asked for a budget increase, we proposed to proceed only with the 300 millimeter pipe, which is the larger pipe. Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. I get a motion put forward, duly seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. We move on to, my goodness, the patience that these two gentlemen have. Fire rescue. We have an inspection presentation. We will be inspecting you as you make your presentation.
Thank you, Your Worship, Council. Fourth presentation now. So hopefully everyone's still ready for this one, but this is an exciting one because it's fulfilling our council strategic priority number 12 around the overview of our current status for the fire inspection program. I'd like to introduce the person that's overseeing the program, and that's Cameron Yee. Would like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, for those of you who don't know me, my name is Cameron. I've been with Golden Fire Rescue as a pay-on-call firefighter coming up on 3 years now. And just recently in January, stepped into the role of the fire prevention coordinator. And in the last few months, I've done over 50 hours of training through the Office of the Fire Commissioner and through some National Fire Prevention Association accredited programs, specifically for fire inspections, and with the hopes of developing and running a program that will not solely focus on enforcement, but also encourage education and building relationships.
Thanks, Cameron. Yeah, we saved Cameron. He was on his way to Vernon, and we stopped him from going because he was so good, so reliable, so amazing to work with, and so
good job.
Really proud to have Cameron sitting here beside me today. He's also nervous to speak to you guys. We'll shake her up. So running through this on the overview here, fire inspections are one of the most effective ways to reduce the fire risk before an emergency occurs. That reduces the costly emergency response and recovery that happens if we don't have an effective program. So by identifying hazards early and working with owners or managers to correct them, the program improves community safety and improves our bus rating, while protecting the municipality through documented oversight. And I'm going to welcome any questions after the presentation about bus ratings or anything that you see here. Oh, yeah, you can't see what I can see, can you? Here we are. So sorry, that was talking about why it matters. Moving forward from there, we're going to talk about the legislative framework.
Yeah, so this is the legislative framework that the fire inspection program is governed by. And the Fire Safety Act, which was introduced in 2024, is basically the umbrella where all this falls under. And what supports that is the BC Fire Code, Fire Safety Regulation, BC Building Code, and NFPA standards, which ensure that from when a building is built until, well, as it keeps going, as the public is going in and out, that it is built safely and that it continues to remain safe in terms of fire and life safety. And then also it's governed by the Town of Golden Bylaw 1149, which further enforces our authority to act as inspectors and carry out these inspections within our municipality here.
Perfect. So just going over the authority of fire inspectors is similar to the authority of the chief underneath our bylaws. That basically gives us the ability to enter buildings at reasonable times, to identify fire hazards, require corrective actions, write orders if we need to, and in extreme situations, we can, where life safety is threatened, inspectors may also order an evacuation.
Okay, so ever since the new Fire Safety Act was introduced, it's moved on to a risk-based inspection module, or model rather. And this is a transition from just inspecting buildings annually to inspecting them based on their level of risk, hazards, the type of occupancy, and history of compliance. So it's a more adaptable program that will change throughout the years. And we're kind of starting with a blank slate. So higher risk buildings such as like care facilities, schools, assemblies, these will be at the top of our list as we work through that. And we'll make sure that we're delegating resources to those buildings, which will have the greatest impact, and the buildings that could pose the biggest potential risks to public safety.
Okay, compliance and enforcement. I won't get stuck on this one, but I just want to make sure that people understand that we do have legislation gives us a ladder for compliance, and that not only is with our bylaw, but there's new administrative monetary penalties available through the OFC. And on the reboot of this entire program, we've been working very, very closely with the OFC. Cameron has a point person that he works with almost, I would say, weekly, if not daily. And it's been really great because this reboot has ensured that we're using best practices in 2026 and not going off of an old playbook. So that has been helpful. And that's what's formed our inspection process, which I'll leave to Cameron to speak to.
And in developing this new inspection process, we're focusing on transparency and defensibility. So we're not trying to blindside building owners and kind of just show up even though we have the authority to walk in and conduct an inspection. It's best, we figure, to give them a heads up and prepare them for what is coming. And that allows the opportunity for education and questions. And that allows them to fix any deficiencies that there might be in their property. And that prevents us from having to do re-inspections and to do follow-ups with them. And in that way, we are using our resources efficiently and saving a bit of our money there. And the structured workflow will ensure that the documentation is clear, and that it's all going in the same place, that all of our inspectors are using the same standardized reports and checklists, so that for years to come, there's not going to be any discrepancy when we're having to go back and look at the history of compliance.
Continuity as we rebuild the program has been a big factor here, and making sure that our records are stored properly. We've had a history of scattered paperwork versus digital records, and we've gone through a process now of standardizing those forms. There wasn't an actual template that the OFC could just give us. So we were working off of other templates that similar towns have used, and then working with the OFC to make sure that we have documentation that is going to be legally good for tracking and defensibility. We actually looked at some something called First Due, which was a software that we kind of use in real time. But the bang for the buck didn't seem worth it in regards to saving money and just having a standardized form. So That leaves us with Excel saved on the J drive to build out that continuity and sustainability of this program so that we can build this and scale it as our town continues to grow. So we didn't want to get anything fancy that would time out or we would have problems with. We wanted to stick to records that would be accessible for years and years to come, depending on who's there and what our capacity is, which brings us to
and
current program capacity.
Speaking on the capacity, I'll be leading the program. Up on the slide, it says that we have 3 additional trained inspectors, and that number has actually jumped up to 5 since this presentation was made. And so I have about 20 hours dedicated to inspections a week, which is a solid number. And if my other inspectors were to conduct just 1 inspection each a month, we would be going through all of the occupancies in town well within a 12-month window. And that's considering if the inspections take 2 hours, which is also a bit more on the conservative side.
Certainly some inspections will take longer than others. So that brings us to our scope. The approximate 200 public buildings, that's going off of old information from around 2000 when our policy was first built. We believe that we were talking with Mr. Armstrong earlier that number is around 400. So that's doubled at least between the businesses that need inspections and everything else in between. We also have within 2 years the short-term rental inspections coming up. So that's 2028. That would bring another 150 buildings. So you can see that we're trying to create scalability within this program, and we would be working closely with planning, the building inspector, and council ultimately if we continue to expand this program or expand hours around this program. So bringing awareness to that is important. We're finalizing that inventory to ensure that we have the cycles that match what the Fire Safety Act is asking us to do, which is prioritizing the hazards. And when we do that, we can get into our cycles better, and that will actually match up with what the FUS report has asked from us to do even before this Fire Safety Act took place. So we'll be more in line with the FUS survey's recommendation. So that is a huge benefit that this program is moving towards. And then finally, when we talk about inventory, we're also talking about vacant buildings. So the vacant buildings, what we'd like to do by working with, again, planning, the building inspector, CAO, and ultimately council, is start moving towards a vacant building registry. And that registry would help us focus on real consequences to having hazards in our community. And we would obviously be looking towards securing those buildings, making sure that there's no massive fire hazards in those buildings, also checking on utilities and maintenance around that. So there's real consequences to firefighters that fight fire in vacant buildings. There's real consequences to the community. And I think that everything starts around a vacant building registry. And so that's, again, something that we're integrating into our plan and into our inventory.
And so the program has already hit the ground and it's going right now. We're doing inspections, and as we're doing that, we're still building the building inventory as we go and addressing a backlog of inspections. All of the previous requests and complaints that we had on file have been dealt with at the moment, and now we're treating everything else, which is a large number, kind of as a backlog, so we can start new and start building a good history of compliance within all of these properties here. And as we go through these buildings, that is how we'll be assessing the risk. And the risk level will, for some buildings, can kind of change as we go throughout the year or throughout the years. And all of this will be digitized and in one place so that all different departments and the fire department can refer to this for years to come without a big question of who, like, what happened before. Yeah.
Yeah, we've had historically an issue around tacking this responsibility onto a chief or someone else, and it sort of gets sidelined, and that will no longer happen. And luckily, we have a fire prevention coordinator that is very organized and looking to lead this program to the greatest standard. So ultimately, again, where we are here is we're building out the program. Any good prevention program, their goal is to stop fires completely. So basically put firefighters out of work. But that's the best case scenario. And a structured and documented inspection program will support public safety while protecting the municipality by fulfilling our mission to protect life, property, and the environment. Open any questions?
Well, just thank you very much for the update, the report. Jordan, you did a great job. Cameron, you knocked it out of the park. Great work. And I'll go to Council Guil.
Excellent. I'm really excited about this.
See the big smile on her face?
Yeah. So I'm glad that you're dealing with the callbacks by, heading off the most, right in your face type of disruptive that need to be done. I'm wondering I have a couple questions. I'm wondering if you're mapping buildings for egress if there is a fire when you're doing these inspections. The other thing is, are you sending out this information during the business licensing renewal? If you can send information out to businesses then, like what their responsibilities are around this. I think that's a good idea. And I know that you are, you may get callbacks, so you're charging for them, because I really believe that if you're sending them the requirements and they're not meeting them when you're having this inspection, I believe they should be charged for that. That's time that you guys have to account for, and we should be getting the funding through fines on that one as well. Mm-hmm. But I'm really excited. I think you guys are all over it.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Councillor. In regards to egresses for all of the buildings that we're inspecting, we are also considering, egresses and pre-planning in general, and that all goes into our who's responding system, which all of our members in the fire department have access to, so that if we have to go there for any sort of emergency, we do already have that information of what the best access or egress routes are. We have numbers to lock boxes, we have emergency numbers. A lot of that is already in place. And as we are going through the inspections with this new program, those will all be double checked essentially, and things will be added if there's anything missing. And then speaking on license renewals, I'm not too familiar with that. I was working with Casper when he was here a bit more often with that, and during renewals, he was asking me to be present for that as well. So maybe with his incumbent, we could talk about doing something around that and circle back to that. And for your last point,
back charging or charging?
Oh yeah. So under the current fire inspection policy that Golden has in place, which is over 2 decades old, for having to do a reinspection, the fee is $50. I'm not sure if or how or when that has been enforced, but I think that number is probably quite out of date, and it would be good to update that. I've looked at other municipalities, and at the moment they seem to be charging more around the $200 for a reinspection. And that number can increase if you have to do another inspection and so forth.
Thank you for that. I got Councilor Manuel, then Councilor Roadley, then Councilor Cooper.
This is good to hear about. I really appreciate. I'm particularly on the mill because those kind of fires, if they get going, can be a destroyer in industry. But also particularly about the vacant buildings. Some of them ones like across the street, yes, it's seems pretty static below, but above there used to be rentals. So you talk about God knows what's up there, including mattresses. The Wingate building hasn't changed since I came here 30 years ago or something like that. And there are vehicles in there. Maybe there's fuel. I don't know. So it'd be nice to get caught up in that kind of thing. Thank you.
I'm here in support. Councilor Rowley.
Thank you, and thank you. Yeah, very, very exciting to see just even the outsized risk with vacant or underutilized commercial properties just being addressed in this way, and the registry solution seems to be pretty effective in some other communities. Also really just, I guess, no particular questions per se, but just a comment of thanks on really professionalizing the system and providing sort of a more contributing towards the rational nexus for some of these costs. So if we're looking at business licensing costs that have remained static as well for quite a while at $70, the cost of a regular fire inspection alone, I'm sure, eats into that. And then of course we have the general administration and review of properties like that. So very excited for the future here and ensuring that the community is safe while they're visiting either public facilities or any of the businesses in the community. So thank you.
Thank you.
Councilor Cooper.
Thank you. The mayor's letting me know we need to divide all of our comments in high, medium, and low. So then I really have to think about how I'm commenting. I appreciate the presentation. It was really well laid out. It's nice and easy to understand. I like your transparency approach with businesses and inspections. I think that will save a lot of time and money. And I think that's really great how it's hitting under our strategic plans in those. I think the capacity, when you've gone through and analyzed what you can do and what you're going to take on, I think that analysis is invaluable and it's made a big difference, and seeing the changes that is happening in the fire department is amazing. My question is going to be around the modernization with records management when you're moving to filing digital documents on the land or your drives, whatever you call them. Do you have a policy for destruction of files for the digital files as well as hard copies? Is that something that you're have on the horizon and have documenting for? Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, we do have a corporate records management policy that all departments of the town of Golden follow, and our team has been working with the fire department. They've appointed someone to be their records management lead, and so our team is there to support them in what they need as they work on these projects.
Perfect. Thanks. And nice job.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Online, anything? If not, again, thank you very much for the presentation, Jordan, Cameron. Great to have you here and great to hear this is good news for all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time, Your Worship. Thank you.
Okay, council, we are going to move on to bylaws. There's under 11A that council give third reading to bylaw number 1512 2026 Town of Golden Recreation Golden Recreation Facility fees. Looking for a mover of that motion. Councilor Rutley, seconder. Councilor Cooper. Anything from staff on this? This is Mr. Pejovic.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Just as per the first and second readings that we passed at our last meeting, staff caught one of the errors that Councillor Gio noted within the body of the bylaw, where we just, when we reformatted some stuff, we just missed a manager may boot people out kind of comment. So that was cleaned up. And then we also looked after kind of all the mathematical aspects within your schedules and did a larger update and made sure that was all in line on the intent of the original report that was brought forward to do with this. So
Thank you for that. Any other comments, questions on Scott's motion? If not, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. We'll move on to 11B, which is the council adopt bylaw number 1508, 2026, Town of Golden 2025 reserve transfers. I'm looking for a move of that motion. Councilor Cooper, I saw your hand move. Councilor Guio seconding that. Ms. Brown, any comments? Perfect. Council, any questions, comments? If not, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously, and we have the next one, 11C, is that council give first reading to bylaw number 1514, 2026, Town of Golden 2026 tax rates. So I'll get that on the floor. Councilor Rowley moving that. Councilor Guil seconding that, and we have a staff report from Ms. Brown, please.
Thank you, Mayor Ozust. So as a result of numerous discussions with council, the bylaw for tax rates for 2026 has now been prepared. Each year, this is a requirement of the community charter that municipality must by bylaw impose property value tax rates for the year. So included in this tax rate bylaw is the tax rates by class, so residential, utilities, major industry, light industry, commercial, as well as recreational, which are the classes that we have here in the town of Golden. Based on council's direction to set the class 5 light industry ratio to the same as class 6, which is commercial, and then setting the class 8 recreational rate to 78.8% of class 5 and 6. And finally, I've also updated council's tax policy to include the strive to move class 8 equivalent to class 5 and 6 over the course of the next 2 years. So the illustration on the second page is the one from the council meeting on, I believe it was March 17th, 2026, where council decided on the scenario to bring forward. The rates for the classes, as well as the average tax estimated for an average home, are down below that under 2026 municipal tax rates. And it shows the change for our most significant category, which is the residential class of properties, to be approximately $14 per month in terms of the increase, just to put it at a granular level for the majority of the population. Finally, included in this tax rate bylaw are also the regional district and hospital district rates. So the regional district, the Columbia Shuswap Regional District and the Kootenay East Regional Hospital District each send us a requisition. And then based on the hospital assessments, we have specific ratios that we must use per the province of BC's circulars. And we calculate the rates that must be applied in order for us to collect the funds that they have requisitioned and remit it to each of those governments. So included within this report is the requisition, and then included within the bylaw are the rates for those two other government agencies. We are in the midst of public engagement on the financial plan, and this is the initial reading of the tax rate bylaw. And so the next reading will be taking place, depending on outcome, on the April 28th meeting that is to come. And the change in the tax revenue that you'll note here is 10% based on council's direction. And in 2026, that approximates tax revenue from municipal property taxes at 8.99 million. So I welcome any questions you have.
Thank you for that, Ms. Brown. Council, any questions of clarification prior to getting the resolution on the floor? Seeing none, then I'll look for someone to move the resolution. Okay. All right. I'm just too darn efficient. My apologies. Any comments? Councilor Guild, my apologies.
I do have a comment about the light industry. I just want to say to all the developers out there that we're talking about boys and their toys type units, if they could build something like that in the light industry with the residential up above, look at the decrease in taxes on that one. So you could probably split the difference between residential and your average rate at minus 41%. So I'm just letting you know about it. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Ms. Brown, could you speak to top of page 3, I believe it is, the 2 hospital districts? Some public might be confused why we're paying 2 hospital districts.
We are, so thank you for the question. We are only paying into 1 hospital district, but we have a Columbia Shuswap Regional District. And so the town of Golden is within the Columbia Shuswap Regional District. However, for hospital purposes, we do contribute to the East Kootenay Regional District. And so one is for the regional district and the other would be for hospital services, which is out of this area.
So, and that just draws me to the point that historically Golden was part of the Columbia Shuswap Hospital District, and we actually paid and then shifted over to the Kootenay East Regional Hospital District. And in fact, we were paying for a number of years to both, one through a requisition to the Columbia Shuswap Regional District to pay for the final debts of that entity before it was resolved. I think it's been about, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago. We just finally, that has been paid off. And now we're just paying part of the Kootenay East Regional Health District. So just a little bit of history there. It's just transition and change costs money and takes time. Councilor Hamburg?
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. Just a couple of comments regarding the Kootenay East Regional Hospital District. Tax rate increase. The lion's share of that is to do the improvements to the Cranbrook, the East Kootenay Regional Hospital, and adding the 3rd floor, which was we've been basically forced by the province to say we will increase our taxation by, I think it was $7 million, our contribution to that project by $7 million over above what the original requisition was for. So that is a big part of the tax increase there. And another part of the tax increase in there is we made a contribution to Hope Air for the replacement of their aircraft and some operational money to keep them afloat. So just a couple of comments.
Thank you very much for that, Councilor Hamburg. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. So with that, there's no new business. We'll move on to question period, which is an opportunity for those in the virtual or the in-person gallery to ask questions relative to any of the subject matters that we discussed today. Asking both galleries at the same time. Going once, going twice. Seeing that there's no questions from the gallery, we have the opportunity to recess to public dialogue session on the 2026-2030 financial plan. And look for that motion. Councilor Routley, Councilor Manuel seconding that. So Process wise, this is an opportunity for any members of the public to provide comment, input on to, with regards to the budget, is that correct?
That is
Miss-
correct, but you just had the mover and seconder on that.
All those in favor? Provide clarification before the vote. That's my fallback. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Did I see a hand up on the screen there? No, okay.
Counselor Dale.
So with that being done, then we reconvene the open meeting, a motion to reconvene. Counselor Manuel, Counselor Guio, all those in favor? Opposed? With that being done, we will now recess to a closed meeting, and with that, we will take a 7-minute bio break prior to opening the closed meeting. So there's a motion that meeting be recessed and council convenes a meeting close to the public pursuant to, actually, can I get somebody else to read that, please?
That this meeting be recessed and the council convenes a meeting close to the public pursuant to section 90, subsection 1, paragraph C of the community charter for council to deal with matters relating to following labor relations.
Thank you for that. Moved by, second by Counselor Guio. All those in favor? Opposed? We are recessed to a closed meeting. We'll take a file break, and those online, please switch over to the other Zoom meeting. With that, council, I'd like to a motion to reconvene the regular open council meeting. Councilor Manuel moving it, Councilor Riley seconded. All those in favor? Opposed? There are no reports from the closed meeting, and we have item number 19. It's motion to adjourn. We'll go Councilor Manuel, Councilor Routley. I'm looking this way, my apologies. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. We are now adjourned.